of United Shades of America, and had a chance to sit down and talk about the shades of creativity. So with that, I want to bring that as our next point of the show. So please stay tuned. Thank you so very much for being a part of our creative Juneteenth. Yeah, this is Dejan Sneed, founder of Subsume, and stay tuned and stay included. And thank y'all so very much again for being a part of Creative Juneteenth 2021. Again, my name is Dedrin Sneed, and I welcome y'all so very much to just partaking of this amazing endeavor that we are all trying to put together to celebrate not only the historic moment here for Juneteenth in its realization across the country, but also the idea of Creative Juneteenth, where we're looking at celebrating so many of the great voices, opportunities, and expectations of a great shared future of story and of inclusion. And with that, we wanted to really do our part to bring in the best and the brightest and most resonating voices to kind of show and share that we have not only the freedoms of today, but we're well poised to be a part of a brilliant tomorrow together. And so with that, we've been hard at work. So let me bring on our next guest that will be able to kind of talk about Creative Juneteenth 2021. And I'll bring him to the stage right now. So
it's me, if you know who I am.
so thank you so much. Welcome to W. Kamal Bell.
Yes.
Of so many cool things that I will let him talk about it versus I ramble over it.
No, yeah. So my name is W. Kamal Bell. I'm the host and executive producer of a little show called United Shades of America, which airs on CNN, has had 6 seasons on CNN. Recent episode featuring Dedrin that we filmed in Atlanta, talking about a lot of things we're talking about here right now. Also, I'm a stand-up comedian, although COVID has really scaled back my tour dates. Author, wrote a book, writing another book. Sometimes director. I'm starting to get into directing. So yeah, so it's you gotta do a lot when you're Black in this business. You gotta be able to as our people always have. You got to be able to make a way out of no way and have a lot of skills.
No, absolutely. Well said. And again, an honor to have you as part of the show. So with that, Kamal, likewise, a great honor bestowed upon me to be among a lot of brilliant people here in the greater Atlanta area for the second show of this season, Black to the Future. And just the title itself, I felt like was very empowering. I think it was very poignant, but at the same time, very, very shocking to see for some people that we had such a constant and consistent parade of excellence. And then I kind of brought in the back end of it. That said, why Black to the Future and why Atlanta? As far as like how did this pitch go and what was the thought process of bringing this about?
Well, it really started out. It's interesting as we talk about in the episode. It did start out with a conversation about Afrofuturism and as a creative force in the world, and it's something that we've seen the conversation more mainstreamed as we talked about in the episode. The Black Panther did a lot of that, but then also I think about like Sorry to Bother You and lots of other things, and also like she wouldn't identify herself as an Afrofuturist, but my cousin N.K. Jemisin is also a part of that discussion, a fantasy writer. I've learned through her that there's a difference between sci-fi writing and fantasy writing, so she identifies as a fantasy writer. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's a lot more work in that world that is being mainstreamed right now. And so we were talking about like, something with Afrofuturism. We also had the challenge of this season being the COVID season. So every place we went had to be a place that we felt like we could film, get to and get out of easily because of COVID. So that sort of automatically sort of scaled where we were going to go. And then it was like, well, if you're going to talk black folks who are who are actively working to be a part of the future, you sort of then get into the political side of things. And once you get into the black folks who are politically marshaling their power and black folks who are being creative and a place where black folks are actually making things that the world sees, Atlanta becomes a spot that becomes pretty clear that you should be considering Atlanta. Certainly I heard from many black folks in STEM that I should have gone where they were, if you're going to talk about this, how come you didn't come here? I mean, I live in the Bay Area. Certainly we could have done an episode out here. You got Black Girls Who Code out here, lots of things. So, but the show is really location based. And so once we picked Atlanta, we knew we would find a little bit of everything that we needed in Atlanta.
No, that's fantastic. And to your point, having the opportunity where that looking for Black excellence, particularly in STEM and in Afrofuturism, could have been several points. Is I think part of the process of what we were trying to bring about Subsume is there's so many of these stories in a good way that if consolidated and shared, that I think we have everything we're looking for. So again, we got to thank you for at least bringing that point to a highlight, particularly for our little town of Atlanta. You know,
And I think,
that's part.
and I think a part of it too is also the part that we get into in the episode is about how, and yet there are Black kids in the Atlanta school system right now who, because of how the school system is set up and how they are or are not educated, they are not being streamlined. They are not being sort of, they're not necessarily going to be a part of that STEM future because they haven't gotten the math classes where they are now to be a part of that STEM future. And so I think we also want to talk about something that, like, yes, there's all these fabulous people here, all these incredible things happening, but how do we get, we're also in a place where we need to talk about how do we get more Black people into that future?
Oh, absolutely. I think as we kind of converse, that's the larger scale opportunity with things like digital redlining and again, to your point, just access to resources and just the socioeconomic availability of the things that everybody should at some point are going to figure inalienable rights to be part of that digital future, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we also talked about the idea of representation. You know, you kind of spoke to this where I want to make sure I say it the right way. It's we do this, right? It's where from your purview, obviously being in entertainment, where you get a chance to move and particularly with your show, that you see so many facets of where particularly maybe America is on the scale from everything, right? I mean, you're in season 7 of this living testament of what we are or what we perceive ourselves to be. Where is that delineation of that we aren't doing this? Or is that just a fallacy that, you know, maybe from a media standpoint or what have you, that we're not highlighted in this sense outside of this episode?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, it's certainly, you know, Black folks are doing everything America has. Black folks are doing everything that America has to do. Like, so there's nothing in this country that's happening that Black folks haven't said, let me see what I can do here. That's absolutely true. But there is also structural white supremacy and structural racism that just sort of naturally keeps Black folks out of places that we want to get to. And we can fight to get through those doors, but we have to fight to get through those doors. I'll just talk about the entertainment industry. If you're a white person who's interested in nonfiction programming, I would say, you know, if you're interested in, you might get funneled into cinematic, high-end documentary television or documentary films. If you're a Black person who's interested in nonfiction programming, you're going to get funneled into reality shows. Now, one's not better than the other, but one pays better than the other. And one also has a higher level of acclaim and awards and has a higher level of cultural capital. So it just means that, like, you may be a Black person who wants to be in documentaries, but because they go, oh, you're a Black editor, I should put you over here in reality TV, then your resume starts to just have reality TV on it, and you get further and further away from being into documentary filmmaking. So I think that kind of thing exists throughout every industry, where doesn't mean there aren't Black documentary filmmakers, but it does mean we don't have more Black documentary filmmakers because the industry is set up in such a way that Black people are not being invited into those rooms. You have to fight your way into those rooms or you have to come through the back door, which is basically how I got in, because I was a comedian and CNN was looking for a comedian to host a docu-series. And once I had a few seasons of that under my belt, I could go into meetings and talk about documentary filmmaking. But it wasn't like, but everybody can't get in that way, obviously. We can't all host a TV show to get into documentary filmmaking.
No, you're right. And to your point of finding your way to get to that spot, right? Where either front door or back door, building your own space, that you know, we always have to do that bit extra to get in the spaces that we need to be. That's, I mean, it's poignant for sure that, you know, even from someone from yourself or your resume, that it's never the front door opened, you know, for you and in mutual appreciation a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so we talk about that and the idea of agency and opportunity, you know, meeting for creatives such as ourselves as what we're trying to build out with Subsume. And part of that too is finding your creative voice, knowing a story and knowing your story in the way that not only represents yourself and your culture, but again, is more of an appreciation of what story is, right? It's the most intimate way we can kind of share ourselves and build legacy. all that said, for you and looking at your creative voice, because as you're saying, right, you're a famous comedian, got a great show, tall, so you got a lot of things going for you, right? That said, how do you find a way to sustain your creative voice, and I guess in this point, when like for the example of being able to bring in filmmaking and directing as far as a new part of your repertoire, how are you finding that process goes for you?
I mean, yes, as we say, I do have a certain a significant level of privilege just because I'm on camera. That because you're on camera, you can get invited into spaces because people want to meet the guy from who the guy they see on TV. So my work precedes itself because my face is my work, basically. So I do find myself, and also I'm interested in getting in these spaces, that I have been able to get invited into places. And then once I'm in those places, prove that I'm not just on the show because I'm so good looking, but I'm on the show because I actually care about these things and have ideas about these things. So it's really a process over the course of my career of like grabbing onto the people who are like-minded, like really going like, and also it's really with people of color and Black folks, like when we see each other out there in the entertainment industry, like, oh, you think the way I think and you've had the same obstacles I think, let's team up. Like, so
Right.
really like grabbing onto people and saying, let's team up and make this happen. And because if we work together, we'll automatically create something different because we have such a different knowledge base, because we have to be of two minds. We have to be of our career mind and also of our cultural mind, our Black mind. And that means that even if, I think about like Spike Lee years ago was talking about, this was years ago when he was advocating to direct Malcolm X. He was like saying, I believe a Black director will bring something to this that a white director will not, in the same way that like Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola bring things to The Godfather and Goodfellas that a non-Italian American director would not be able to bring to that. Now, having said that, the other thing that he said is that, and I've seen other people say this, but Black folks, we can direct white things, just white, because we are existing in it all the time. We are like, so it doesn't mean we just direct Black stuff. It means, no, we know this white America because we are brought up having to consider white America all the time in a way that white America hasn't really had to consider Black America really until 2020, if they paid attention when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were killed. So it's like, so we are always of more than one mind. And at the same time, also aware that I think one of the big things that the show puts forward, United Shades puts forward, is that Black is not a monolith. So just because we are Black and just because we have a similar background doesn't mean we think the same way. Now, a lot of times we hear that and you think like, oh, you must be talking about the difference between me and Ben Carson. That's an extreme example of it. I'm talking about the difference of like, you're Black and you live in Atlanta. I'm Black. I lived in Oakland, but my dad's from Mobile, but I lived in Boston, and you have a different background. And all that stuff means that we have different nuances that often Black people are not given credit for as nuanced thinking. So that if we collaborate and work together, the nuance is where the art will be created, not the broad strokes.
No, absolutely. The devil is in the detail, but also the space in between is where we all live. So no, you're right on with that. And I mean, you brought up some points, particularly creators, especially Black creators right now, right? We are existing in an unprecedented time on a lot of fronts, right? We have just seen so much change. But really what to say is, I mean, we live in a space where all of the transitions of the world seem to always, intersect, or in some ways, are just pressures on us, right? That when we see one of our brothers and sisters killed on camera, and when you say, oh my, how could this possibly happen? And then you refresh your screen and it happens again, right? So we're creating and existing in this part of active resistance in a system that's trying to limit a capacity. I mean, there's a way to say like limit where we're trying to go. How does that affect you in the way that you try to tell your story, or does it? Or what's your perspective of, I think, where we are right now and as Black creatives?
I mean, I think this is why it's important to have a group around you of people, of like, whether that group is a group around people who are physically in your space, your immediate intimate community, or people online who you connect with, or friends from back in the day. Because I do think there's a thing that I need to have people I can check in with specifically Black people, am I crazy? And they go, no, you're not crazy. Okay, all right, then I can go do the thing I need to do, or I can go ask the question I need to ask, or I can say the thing I need to say, or I can demand the thing I need without feeling like it's me. It's not just me, right? And so I think that's the thing that is certainly important about when you build your community and when you find other like-minded people. And a lot of those people be Black, some of those people may not be Black, but just finding people who get that nuance so that you don't feel like you're alone. Because I think that's the scariest thing in this business, in the creative world, is that on some level you have to be alone, because to create, you sort of have to listen to your own inner voice. And then when you share it, it's scary because you go, what if this thing I created is just nonsense from my brain? And so you have to share it. But the thing you want to do is find people who you can trust and be like, because sometimes it is nonsense. No, that's nonsense. And sometimes they're like, no, that's the good stuff. More of that. And I think that's important, to have a community of people around you. They may be people you work with or just people that you hang with who can help you know when you are and when you are not crazy.
Right. It's a point of knowing that you've got a resource and some reference, and in some way just protection from a lot of what's going on. So I mean, I think those are absolutely good points, and key that we do check on ourselves. We do check on our strong friends, and again, like, be able to have that cultural check-in if we're gonna kind of give it a little phrase of, okay, I've got this idea, or I'm experiencing this, and I think we have to normalize that kind of conversation. That's me saying that out loud for self-therapy, but at the same time, I think for us as creators, I think we feel a lot more, if this makes sense. Like, we're more sensitive to those changes, whether they're cultural, whether they're emotional, whether they're economic. We see this in the arts, right? That it's feast or famine. It's the idea of the starving artist. It's the idea of, you got to bleed for your art, that a lot of us take to almost a literal sense. Now, given that we've been in this space and we see that creativity, particularly the idea of Afrofuturism, the idea of being included in STEM and all of these initiatives that, at least now, with the change of government, change of the calendar, seem to be in season. Is this an in-season thing, or does this feel like it's more of a movement from your perspective?
Whenever I sort of think about this, think about my mom. My mom's 83. So she is, as I've joked many times before, she's lived through all of the Black experience except for slavery at 83 years old. And she lived through things that were very close to slavery, as far as how much people were getting paid or not paid, or how they were treated. So I think that, it's always a movement, but the movement ebbs and flows based on America's ability to pay attention. So there is something weird about the fact that I think about, like, when I was young in the 90s, that was a movement. We're talking about like Rodney King, and we're talking about like how hip hop really said, America, pay attention. And we're talking about like even the O.J. Simpson trial was a time when America was having this reckoning with race, and that's the early 90s. 30 years before that, we're in the 60s. That was a time when where Black folks were saying, America, pay attention. So there are these ebbs and flows that do feel cyclical in some sense, but there are also different ebbs and flows, because if you talk about 2001, all my brown skinned Arab, Muslim, Persian, South Asian friends can talk about 9/11 as a moment of like a cyclical moment, a moment of like America, pay attention to how you're being in the world. So I think that like there are something to be said about these moments being cyclical. I think it's important for those of us who do the work to take advantage of when we have the attention of this country, of the broad swath of this country, even those who don't agree with us. The fact that people who don't know what critical race theory is have to say it out loud is in some sense a victory. Now we have to make sure we don't let them destroy what it actually is. But I think the idea being like we have to take advantage of these moments, and there's a lot of pressure to do the right thing and take advantage in the right way, and as much as as much as many folks want to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. as having won victory, as I always say, we have to remember he was assassinated for his beliefs. So we can't get caught up in the victory is not always in the moment, but we have to take advantage of the moments that we have, and hopefully get some, and I think right now you are seeing Black people in the movement of anti-racism and the movement of Black Lives Matter leveraging their power, but you're also seeing Black creatives leverage their power because now they're getting meetings and having people pay attention to them in ways they weren't getting people to pay attention to them before. I mean, it's sort of funny to think that in the midst of all this, not funny, but it's interesting to think in the midst of all this, the last season of Insecure is about to happen. Insecure is coming to an end. That is a revolutionary program that people will study as an era of TV. This was a time when change happened. And to think that in the midst of all this, it's coming to an end. But Issa Rae is an industry and will be an industry going forward. And that show alone will change the lives and change the arc of the entertainment industry. And I think, my cousin, N.K. Jemisin, just announced last week, signed a big deal. I mean, she won the Hugo Award 3 times in a row. She three-peated the Hugo Awards. I won 3 Emmys in a row, but then she topped me by winning 3 Hugos in a row. And those books have been bestsellers for a long time. And I was like, when is the industry going to actually step up and pay her for this and pay her to make this work? Now, not only are they turning the books into, Sony has bought the rights to the books, they're allowing her to write the script, which is a big deal. Because a lot of times they'll be like, thank you for that content, Black people, we'll see you later. But she gets to actually engage in creating the script, which is a big deal. So I think that things are shifting, but it's like when you got a hot hand in poker, you got to get everything you can. You got to get everything you can while you got the hot hand, because this country's ability to forget the recent past, as you know, with January 6th, is quite regular.
Right. So, and shout out to the Great Value insurrection. That's again a very just a great point in history as well. That I think was a wake up call for America to some sense. You said something, and I think it's right on that this country's quick to forget. Right. We as Black people been in this country and built this country for hundreds of years. To think that, to your point, we're just now maybe having yet another point of, hey, we've been trying to tell you this thing and we've been showing you, now can you please pay attention? I think, to your point of all the great creators you just named, how do we best use our voice right now? And I know there's a point of trying to make creative things, making our own art. And I think even from the independent or indie scene where, for example, we'll have the comic book bittery will be something we'll talk about this weekend, where Chuck Brown and Sanford Green and David F. Walker, wrote a story about a fantastic Harlem Renaissance, and now that movie's going forward into Legendary and into Regina King and to I can't think of the gentleman that Ryan Coogler. It's going up into that part, and so I think we've got that was idealistic. I've got an idea, and it's just a rocket ship to the moon. From a local sense, for creators who are looking at how can I be of service, to the larger conversation. What do you say to that? I guess what are the points or maybe your purviews of how can we make the biggest impact right now?
I think it's sort of going back to Issa Rae, and I've been talking about this for years. Why did she get that show? Is it because she went to HBO and pitched it and said, I'm funny and I'm a good writer and you should make a show about me? No, she made the show. She went on YouTube and made The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. And that show became a thing that HBO was like, I think we want that over here. so that when she goes to that first meeting, she's not just a talent. She is a executive producer, creator, writer, and an actor, And so I think that we are living times where, and I see this all the time, you can start to make it now. If there's anything we've learned through the pandemic, it doesn't even have to look that good, whatever the final product is. We got A-list stars singing into their phones. So, so I think that we have to you can start to make it now. Don't wait, because the sooner you start to make it, the sooner you'll get good at it, or the sooner you'll learn that ain't it, and you move on to the next thing. So I think the thing I would say, if I could give myself one piece of advice, the young me, I would be like, just start making it now. Because the moment I started to make it, whatever it is, for me, it was like, go rent out a theater, go do a show, get a poster, give it a title, give it a theme. Just go. Don't wait for showbiz to say you have a show. Do it yourself. that my career started to change very quickly after that. Not overnight, but I started to see results very quickly after that. Whether that's like, oh, the press cares about me, I'm getting good reviews. Oh, I'm being invited to LA to do things now that I wasn't getting invited to do. I think that's the thing I would be like, and this is old news now, so everybody should be doing this, but don't wait for permission. Start whatever it is. Start making your thing now. And then maybe you can't make the perfect version of it, but make the best version you can to prepare for the perfect version of it.
No, that's well said. And my thought when it was going to go right to that is there's two awesome writers, Brandon Easton and Brandon Thomas, both in indie comics and Big Two comics. They have a saying about the perils of waiting for permission, right? It's the end of your career, right? Mm-hmm. Before it starts. Like if you're waiting for it. And I got to, like, as an independent creator, I have to say the same thing to myself all the time is you're always waiting for that call, the idea, the call up. Like, we're in the minor leagues or in the Negro mm-hmm. leagues. We want to pitch it for this thing here. You're expecting, we're good in our space, but what can I make it up there? But I think for us, the idea of Subsume, and of course the idea I think of that we're all kind of realizing is, we can make it here, right? They have to come to us, or we'll be fine by ourselves. I think that's the part of agency that is most exciting to me. Is like Anissa Rae, being able to come in hand with your intellectual IP, your talent, and yourself, and say like, we can converge from this position of strength versus okay, we're going to take this from you Black people. Thank you for your time, talent, and energy, and see you when we see you. Right? I feel like we've had that hand handed to us a lot, but I think that's what's so exciting about where we are right now, and this idea of Black intellectual IPs and creativity and capacity, that we're doing it all. And again, I going back to your show and the shows in subsequent form that we see not only just in Atlanta, of course, but I think throughout, that we've got a lot of creative energy and capital that's is the building blocks of the future. I think we just got to keep forward with the momentum that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the there's the time is now. And I feel like that even at the level that I'm at, whatever level that is, because sometimes people say, I aspire to be like you one day. And I'm like, dream bigger, aim higher. So as I sit in the seat I also know that whatever level of making it I have, CNN tomorrow could be like, we don't make shows anymore. We just want to go back to doing the news. Then this platform I sit on goes away. And if I haven't prepared myself for that moment, then I haven't paid attention to the history of showbiz or the history of Black folks in this country. You can't relax. You can't sit back and and just sort of hope that this is the thing. So I think that for me, it's like, even in this moment, like the show just ended, our season just ended. We'll be back for another season at least. But the season just ended, and it's like, on to the next. Like what am I going to do in this time between now and the next season to sort of make sure that not only for my own career, just for my own creative, what do I want to do creatively to keep myself going? Because I don't want to put everything in the United Shades box. And sometimes that means I have too many things on my plate, like right now. But I sort of also feel like, as I said to my friend Jason always says, strike while the iron is lukewarm. Like you can't wait for it to get hot. If the iron is lukewarm, strike. So
absolutely. Now I'm gonna close out with one last thing. Blurred to blurred. Wanting to understand what is the final form of the Kamal Bell? Like when we see you at your creative peak, what is it that you are truly looking to do or create or say as would be a legacy project or idea for you?
Well, I think for me, it's funny when you say if we're going to go blurred to blurred and we're going to use final form. I actually probably see myself more as in a Professor X role than a I was going to say Storm role, like a leader. That's my number one leader of the X-Men. I just want to be clear. Storm is the leader of the X-Men. Don't let the movies fool you. I see myself more in a role of sort of setting other people up. And I think that if I don't get to a place in my career where I'm not sort of surrounded by other Black folks and creators of color and and who are also empowered to go make their own things, even things that I don't know anything about, but I have given them a platform that I think I've misunderstood the assignment, as they say. If I really understand the assignment, it will be as somebody who helps other people get to where they want to get to, and that I can help support and use whatever I've learned to help create those things.
Well, you have definitely done it for me and for our humble platform here at Subsume in Atlanta. So, personally and professionally, thank you. And then likewise, taking this time to share of yourself this Juneteenth, that we have people like yourself, as an example and as an experience to see and show that we've got a bright shared future together. So again, with that, thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. I mean, let me be clear. I want to thank you for participating in United Shades of America, because I don't know if you recall, but we're in the midst of COVID and a very charged political time. And had the election happened yet? I can't remember. It had happened.
No,
it had. I can't remember. But anyway, there was a lot going on, and you could have. We all would have understood if you're like, "No, I'm gonna stay in my house and just panic. I'm not going outside and catching COVID for this dude." So thank you for coming outside your home and trusting us with a couple hours of your time, and because it was great to have you on the show, and you did a lot in what was an incredible and a high watermark episode for the series.
No, pleasure, for yourself and my fellow compatriot, the lovely and talented Jane of all trades, Phil Richardson, that was part of that. Just an amazing time. So again, I thank you for that, and love to keep this as a continuing conversation. So with that, for other folks like us indies, I have to be like, where can we find you? Right? Where can we follow your work? But I'll give you that underhanded pitch before we get out of here.
No, it says at W Kamal Bell. That's who I am on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on TikTok, but just as a watcher. There's an official Facebook page, but I'm not engaged much there because I'm not trying to be misinformed. But but I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram, and if you say things, I will respond to you unless they're so out of the box. I'll just send you the block. But yeah, I'm certainly like to be active and talk to folks, and let's stay in touch.
Oh, absolutely, bro. Appreciate you. So again, thank you so very much. This is W. Kamal Bell, and yes, continuing on with the Parade of Excellence here with just a fantastic run for the day here with us here on Creative Juneteenth. Again, this is Dejan Sneed, founder of Subsume, and we're so thankful for you and your time. And just please stay tuned as we continue on our journey to look forward to the best of our shared Black future together. Thank you so much, and appreciate the show. Thank y'all so very much. Again, I appreciate y'all sticking around with us here through our Creative Summit here with Subsume Summit, Creative Juneteenth 2021. And again, my name is Dejan Sneed, founder and host of Subsume. And with that, we just had W. Kamal Bell from the United Shades of America, and us talking about not only our points of intersect with this show, the United Shades of America, but also our shared passion for fandoms and being able to tell our stories with authenticity. And with that, I want to go ahead and go right into our next point in panel. Again, we as Subsume are a collaborative spirit, both in mind and in practice. And one of the great collaborations that we've had a chance to build is a partnership with HBCU Con, bringing together the HBCU experience along with our shared geek and fandoms for both education and enjoyment. And so with many of their endeavors, again, we just had a panel with them earlier, but we want to talk about a different world and getting the HBCU geek perspective on life and entertainment in this Juneteenth holiday. So I'm going to bring them and call them right onto the stage and let them have their time. So again, we're thankful for the folks here with HBCU Con. We'll get them here into the stream. Hey there, Shauna, how you doing? And
good.
Pleasure. And again, as always, a privilege to be in your presence. So thank you so very much. Yet another good time for us to talk about a different world and your team here. So I want to just turn it right on over to you and go ahead and give the floor away. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Dejan.
Oh, thank you now.
Yep. Hello, and welcome to another installment of A Different World HBCU Geeks. I am your moderator, CC the Geek. So I'm just waiting on our panelists to jump on. Dedrin, I guess you the one to curate that. There's some people backstage. All right, there we go. I'm like, I don't know none of this tech stuff. Well, at least not for this stream. But hi. So I just wanted to jump right in and have you guys introduce yourselves. But once again, another installment of A Different World HBCU Geeks. HBCU Con is an organization that's designed to celebrate and bridge the gap between the HBCU and geek communities. So here we are, happy to celebrate Juneteenth with Subsume. Thanks so much for having us. And let me start with David Hooker, and then I'll just go clockwise. I'll go clockwise from my view.
Okay. Hey, David Hooker here. I am HBCU alum, Bowie State University, oldest historically black college university in the state of Maryland. A lot of history there. If I don't give you the whole rundown, I could though. I am excited to be here. And I'm also, on the daytime, I work at the Walt Disney Company as an associate product manager. So I work on like the Disney.com website and Star Wars website, and a couple of other the franchise titles and things like that. And yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, Creek, go for it.
Hey guys, my name is Cree Michelle, aka Brown Sugar Outlaw. I am a cosplay actress. I think that's the best title I could come up for all the crap I do. Currently, I do YouTube videos for CBR.com, Comic Book Resources. And aside from that, I went to Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. All around nerd, super tall, super lanky, super clumsy.
Nice. That's very succinct. I appreciate that. All right, Greg Burnham, go for it.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
How you doing? How y'all doing?
I'm good.
I'm glad everybody's good. My name is Greg Burnham, and I am a writer, children's book author, publisher. What else do? I do a lot of other stuff too that comes along with all of that. But I have a comic book that I co-create with Marcus Williams called Tuskegee Airs. I have another comic book called The Search for Sadaka. And then I got some other stuff that y'all have. I got a comic with Dedrin that's going to come out. And
nice.
Y'all going to be like, ah. So, yeah. Yeah.
Nice. All right, Tasha, go for it.
Yo, my name is Natasha. Also love Usagi. You can find me on all platforms under that name. I am a HBCU. I'm from Bowie State, so I'm a Bowie. So I am also a super geek. I'm into all things video games, comics, anime, and I also, as my day job, I am a development support analyst at Insomniac Games.
All right, awesome. Sorry, I was trying to see if we could get Tyra on board. But last but certainly not least, let's go with Venture Bros. I don't know whether he call you Michael or Venture Bros or Alan.
Everybody call me a little bit of something, but my name is Alan. Venture Bros cosplay. I'm a cosplayer. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I teach a lot of children in the Chicagoland area, and now currently in the Houstonland area, how to create props, how to do photography. And I'm also a Hampton University alum, captain in the military. And, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. So happy to be in a virtual space, at least with some of my favorite people. So, and how awesome is it? Awesome, but also like no pressure that we have to follow W. Kamau Bell. Like, but that was a dope panel. So shout out to him and Dedrin. But let's dive right in. I want to start with some basic questions, and I do want to talk a little bit about current events as well. So some of you kind of mentioned which HBCUs you attended. So like kind of reiterate what HBCUs you attended. And also talk about, well, even before you get into that, talk a little bit more about what your passions are and what your fandoms are. So like, is it comics? Is it anime? Are there any particular fandoms? Like I know you mentioned Star Wars, David. We do avatars, like a thing, amongst some of us too. So talk a little bit about that and then how that transcends into the work you do in the geek community. So I guess we'll follow the same order if you want.
That's mine, David.
It didn't fit on your desk, so I stole it. But yeah, I was trying to find. I was like, I feel out of place because everybody else has their swag out. I feel like the Uncharted. I see Kree is dressed in full attire. I just felt like I missed the memo. I'm trying to.
I didn't get the memo where we're talking.
I'm trying to pull stuff off my desk
on.
and things. Like I don't have nothing. Here's me. There you go.
What you got? Oh my gosh.
That beats everything I have. That beats everything. That is the cutest thing in the world.
That's a picture of all the things you like, Mickey Mouse and Spider-Man.
There you go. Mickey and Spidey. That's all I need. No, I'm kidding. As far as fandoms, super into anime as it relates to like just the ones that you got your super fight against like this underdog status, the fight for acknowledgement. So obviously your Naruto's, your Bleach, your DBZs, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm loving Dr. Stone right now, just because, again, science nerds and geeks is just like, I love what he is doing and teaching people. I'm going to learn how to make a cell phone, too. But anyway, and then obviously Marvel, because Disney, right, by extension, Marvel fandom. And then actually, I'm excited to be on a call with folks working on Tuskegee Airs, my man. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
That's what I felt like. I'm like,
right. On the right panel? Okay. Those are some of the things I love. And then again, super into video games. One of my favorite games of all time is probably Spider-Man 2. That web swinging changed the game for me. And fast forward, I get to play Spidey Miles Morales, and seeing that, come to fruition has also been pretty awesome. So,
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute because we got one of the creators right here on this panel. So, of Miles Morales, that is. So, let's go to Kree, talk about your passion and your fandoms a little bit.
I want to preface this by saying I hate this question. That's one of my passions.
Okay.
Where you make me pick.
Duly noted. I mean, pick, you go down the list of what you want.
I'm gonna forget something, and then I'm gonna text you at midnight and be like, "I forgot this. How dare you make me list them?" I love, honestly, all things geek and nerdy. I've been watching cartoons since I was young, and it just carried over into anime and manga. And of course, I've always loved superheroes. Once they started making movies about superheroes, I was like, "Yes,
right,
it's my time." And the fact that it's never going away, it makes me so happy to know that there's more coming eventually. I am a big My Little Pony fan. I have finally come to the confidence level to say that I do believe that My Little Pony is better than Steven Universe, and I will fight everybody on that.
That's deep.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yes.
What?
I said it. I said what I said. Not going back. You can't make
this is so intense early.
Yes. See, this is why you don't make Kree-lister fandoms. Honestly, there's so many things that I love. I love my PlayStation to death. I've been a Sony girl since I was young, and that will never change. Nintendo's coming in out of favor with me, but they did okay with the Switch. They do it okay. They got a lot of games, so I'm proud. I hope this one lasts longer than the Wii U. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
There's just so many things that I love and enjoy, and it keeps me from losing my mind. I love being a nerd, and I love everything about this community, and it's just so much fun to see new things and learn new things from other people.
Nice. All right, Greg, go for it. Talk about it.
I don't like nothing.
Obviously.
No, I'm
I
a
don't even
huge.
like my own comment.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of Brown Sugar Outlaw. I like all her pictures, but not at the same time like a creepy person. You know what I'm saying? This is
Right.
not creepy. I just appreciate her.
Right.
I like sports, man. I know that's not the proper thing to say on these type of things. I'm a huge basketball fan. I used to play basketball. I
Who's
used
your
to coach
team?
basketball.
Who's your team?
The Lakers.
Okay.
Don't look at me.
It's an early
I
exit,
don't know how
but
I feel about that. Okay, that was
Right. Like there's something better.
Spurs,
Yeah.
Mavs.
So anyhow,
Bye.
but also
Phoenix.
what?
I mean, Phoenix did boot them out.
Oh yeah, let's count how many championships Phoenix has. Let's count those. Yeah, it's not gonna be like 17 of them. But anyways, yeah, I also, the nerd stuff, like, so I'm old. Grew up watching G.I. Joe. I love G.I. Joe, Transformers, Voltron. What else? Star Wars. A little bit of everything, sort of. I'm not the biggest anime fan. I know that's not also something that you're not supposed to say, but I don't hate it or anything. It's just not much of it really resonates with me, and I refuse to watch anything that has a Sambo.
Fair enough. And we could talk a little bit about that as well. I definitely want to get into that and like representation and not just representation, but how we're represented in all the different genres, right? So before we get into all that, Natasha, I don't even know why I called you that, girl. I always call you Tasha because I'm reading it. But Tasha, please talk about your passions. Obviously, gaming is a big one, but I know you're a woman of many things and many lives. So yeah.
Yes. And like Cree, like I definitely hate this question only because like there's so many things that I'm into that I love, and then like I try to say all the things, and then I'm like I forget like half of the things that I like, and I'm like, oh, I do love that, and I love that. But yeah, I'm like definitely into games. I feel like I've been gaming since I came out the womb. Like I just feel like I came out with a controller and just was like plopped in front of an Atari. So yeah, it's just like gaming since forever. And even when I look at like my career now, like I never knew that I could be in the gaming space because I never really saw like, a lot of Black people, Black women in the gaming space, and until much later, I feel like I had that like, I started behind in my career in games. But I mean, huge into anime. I've been watching anime since I, accidentally saw Akira at like 6 or 7 years old on my like weird anime, on my anime, like there was like a Japanese animation channel on like cable like early on, and it was just like I just happened to be up real late at night, and it was just like I don't know if I was supposed to see this yet, or no, it was in Ninja Scroll, so it was like that like breaking me into like anime. And then Sailor Moon is like my all-time favorite, and just like even now, Demon Slayer, My Hero, I'm super into those fandoms. I think they have great stories. I feel like when I look at like My Hero's progression from like starting at the Dragon Ball series and seeing how we can see a hero grow, and even just the progression of it. Let's not carry this out over like 15 episodes to get to one point. I feel like they've condensed a lot of that storytelling. And I just feel like anime as a genre has just progressed as far as just the animation. I feel like it's always had heightened and well-developed and strong animation, but I think it's just been blown out of the water recently. And I'm definitely into comics. I mean, I got my Spidey tee on right now. I joined Insomniac because I wanted to work on a Spider-Man game. I was like, I love, grew up playing, the demos of Spyro in Sears, and having to, get to work on Ratchet and Clank now as an adult. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Right.
But I'm into huge, Bat Family fan. It is quite expensive to collect the Bat Family comics at this point, but it's like, can we just knock it down to like 3? I'm into a lot of indie stuff too. I like one of my favorite indie comics is, and like again, like now that I have to like spout off stuff that I like and know, it's like, dang, brain fart.
I mean to put you on the spot.
But
Saga,
thank you. It just like it's just one of my favorite comic books of recent years, and or series, and just heavily into just the geek culture, just seeing it be more mainstream, because growing up like in the 90s, or it was a shame. It was like, you're into that stuff, that's weird, and seeing it be more, seeing comic book movies taken seriously, that these can be stories that have heart, great action, character development, and even just the cosplay scene, like seeing it be more inclusive of Black people and all people of color, because it just felt like that's not something I can be a part of, because I don't see myself there, or people shame you when you do try to join it. So yeah, I'm into anything. I will say I'm a huge fan. Star Trek, Star Wars, but I am overly critical of Star Wars. I'm like not one of those fans just like I love everything, because I want to just throw it out there that The Mandalorian is trash.
Wow. I can't believe you just said that. Baby Yoda went through too much for you to come in here with that type of
Can we vote people off the stream?
Like you said, this was a panel, like, not a free for all. Like
it is indeed.
I like it though. I like the spice.
That is why I carefully select my panelists, because I like
it's like they're just coming in with all this slander already. We just started.
Yeah.
Right. But we got
Laker Heat. Planting my flag right now.
Yeah. You got one person don't like anime.
Yeah.
Another person don't
anime
like
Heat.
Hey.
We are not a monolith. That's what this session is about.
Exactly.
Not at all.
So yes, Venture Bros, talk about your passion as well, and then from there we can go straight into like the HBCU experience from there. But go ahead and talk about your passion and fandoms.
So, like Greg, I was always into sports, and at the same time, I was always into, anime like hardcore. At a young age, just like Tasha, I was introduced to like Ninja Scroll, Akira, Fist of the North Star, and like on TV, that's when early Dragon Ball came out. So I used to see like those episodes in the morning, and I was playing like games like Mario and stuff like ever since I can remember. So it's like I've always been like into nerd stuff, but I was also into sports as well. I didn't really see a difference, because like everybody I played sports with pretty much, played like Sonic the Hedgehog and other video games and stuff. So we had that in common. It wasn't until like maybe middle school and like high school, I started seeing like people that were like completely against nerd culture. And at that point, I still played sports, and I was like on varsity and stuff, but I just didn't bring that up with them. And I just, kept up with it, I should say. I lost touch with comic books in high school, but like when I joined the military, I like got back in touch with, comics again. And I'm into like everything. Like I'm into Star Wars, Star Trek. I'm into anime, Marvel, DC. Like I can find things I like almost with any nerd genre. It's like it might not be my favorite, but there's something in there that I might like, and that's usually how it happens. And it's to say like I was messing with it earlier when I was talking about Star Wars, because I didn't like the Solo movie. I didn't like the last trilogy. What they did to Finn was super tragic. So it's like I have my problems with every genre like that, except for maybe Marvel a little bit. It's hard for me to like find flaws with Marvel, but like everything else, I can really come for them just like I like it. But that's the thing about being a nerd. It's so vast, and there's so many things like in nerd and like that culture that you can gravitate towards. And I'm just one of those people, like I take and pull from like each thing, But definitely anime. If I had to say a favorite, anime would probably be my favorite, because like anime just like kind of got me through tough times, even as an adult, And I know a lot of people don't like to count Avatar Last Airbender as anime, but I remember like it was just different philosophies in Avatar that after they introduced it on the show, I went back and looked up, and I just like applied these things to my life, and a lot of people might think it's silly, but a lot of nerd things do have like deeper meanings that can apply to your life. And I was able to find some of those things. So yeah, when it comes to like what I'm into everything, but anime definitely is the top.
Nice. All right. Thank you all so much for sharing your passions. I know we all got a little bit of everything. Like Hooker said, the moral to the story here is that we are not a monolith. And I do want to get back to your point earlier, Greg, about representation and all that jazz. So before we do that, and this will kind of lead into that really well, I think, but talk about what HBCU or HBCUs you attended, and also talk about your experience there from like a geek perspective. So like, what was geek life there? Was there like any geek or nerd life there that you noticed or found any community? What organizations you may have been involved in? Were you a commuter? Did you live on campus? Did you work? All that stuff. So, just keep the same rotation, Hook. Keep it going.
Oh, I was going to defer on this one just because we can have some similar back and forth with some of the panelists, right?
Right.
I went to Bowie State, as I mentioned, and I was that kind of academically inclined geek, right? Testing was very easy for me. It came very simple, I would say, for me, right? And so in that world, I was able to finesse my way, as we say it now, into a full scholarship. So I had a full academic scholarship on campus. I just had to make sure my grades were straight. So that did allow me to like invade into a bunch of different, organizations, clubs, activities, and just be a part of campus life to the fullest. And I got to find camaraderie amongst a bunch of groups, but there was also those like cliques, right? So there's the student government, there's SGA, there's that sort of clique, right? Of people who trying to lead campus or be faces and names and stuff on campus. There was that I got to be a part of. But I found camaraderie in being able to create a space for people to just be who they were, right? So in our dorm room and in our like suite, the whole goal that we had was, look, people are into all kinds of things. People don't want to be judged and stuff. You just want to be able to come here and chill and be happy and included and be able to do whatever you want. So that sort of was the energy, right? The mood behind where we lived, which was called Suite 200. And so in there, you could walk down the hall. I think my roommate put it really well. You could walk down the hall. You could see a couple dudes playing Madden. You could find somebody on the football team, getting ready for a game. And in the same breath, you could find somebody having a heated debate about Ninja Scroll while other people were like playing video games, and somebody just studying for a test, right? All of these things happening in the same like little microcosm, right, is what we sort of fell on. But I would say that wasn't necessarily the case for everybody, right? Folks who existed either lived in their silos, and when they had attentions that diverted from things, they really didn't feel as welcome, right? Like I was also the mascot, so I'd have to be around, Chili's and everything, and enjoy my time, sort of working out with the teams and the sports and everything. But the minute you start talking about stuff that isn't, sort of canon in their world, then, or if they found stuff that they were interested in wasn't really canon, then they sort of felt a little delineation between their group. But that 200 was an opportunity for people no matter what. And you would get like, I'd call them like guest stars, right? People who would show up, who you'd be like, this dude is like hardcore streets of Baltimore. What does he know about Super Saiyan 4? Like, what's going on? And like certain things that would happen where people were able to engage all those other like passions, right? Because we don't just have the one thing, right? You're not just a sports fan. Like you like sports, you love that team, but you also maybe have started looking into soccer, and maybe have started looking into these other sports or other competitive, areas, right? And that may turn you on to a competitive anime. You may be watching that tennis one, which people tell me is hot fire. But it was just that, like getting people having that opportunity to have camaraderie, regardless of what your experience was.
Yeah, facts. Shout out to the Sweet 200 experience. I know Tasha will speak on it from her perspective a little bit too. I do want to ask Cree about your experience at Savannah State and being the theater kid, as you call yourself. Well, you were actually the theater kids.
Cool. Okay, so my experience at Savannah State was a bit lopsided because I went in with the intention of like school, work, do what you got to do. You know, my hobbies were my hobbies because the thing is, in a college campus, you kind of have it's a lottery draw, essentially. You know, if you go to when you're first there, if you don't go to the same school as some of your friends, or if you don't already know someone who goes to that college, you go in and you're just like, I guess I'll find the nerds when I find the nerds. Hootie who? Anybody? No, like it's really hard to find us. And I'm not even about to front. You know what I mean? I got lucky because I met my teammates, Usual Rangers 5. I met Jerry Pringle there. And he was like, yeah, why don't you come over to 1011? That was our Sweet 200. And I was like, oh, that's where everybody is. Cool. I'll come meet you there, whatever. I go there, I meet him, and I don't just meet him. I meet everybody in one fell swoop. Every nerd on campus was in that suite. And I was like, whoa, wait. This is where you guys were this whole time. How was I supposed to know if I didn't get the invite? You know, if y'all didn't teach me the secret knock, how was I supposed to know? You know what I mean? And then, of course, I met other people who would go to their dorms. You go in their dorms. And it's like people would have the same dorm, but a nerd dorm looks like a convention floor. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're in a different building, you know? So I came in about end of my freshman year. No, end of first semester, sophomore year. Like I was really late to the party because I was busy doing, you know, the other things that you're supposed to do in college. And it was actually bad because it was a huge distraction. I mean, every time I needed a nap, every time I wanted to chill, every time I'm like, you know what? I could watch somebody get beat up on Smash right quick. I had a bad day. You know, like that's what you would go. That was your sanctuary. And it was so much fun to just be around people who would get your references. I remember the first reference that everybody kind of got along was, what's the guy's name? He's a puppeteer. He's a comedian. He uses puppets. Jeff Durham? Whatever. He was the first reference that I made, and it was just, you know, chilling. And they were like, oh, I get the reference. And I was like, I've been here for a year and a half. No one has gotten any of my references. You know, every once in a while you make a joke about, you know, this is not the dorm you're looking for. And people are like, why are you waving your hand in my face? You know, I'm like, don't worry about it. It's cool. And my dizzy behind, I've always been the type to be weird first and then realize I'm being weird after the fact, you know? So a lot of people, when they got to know me, they were like, oh yeah, no, Cree's just weird. Oh no, Cree's a nerd. You get used to the references even if you don't know them. And I kind of forced people to acclimate to me rather than losing that side of myself. I mean, of course I knew to what degree to let the nerd out, but it was still like, I still wanted to be me. And I still wanted to, you know, I didn't want that to negate my Black experience, especially since I grew up in like the heart of Atlanta, you know, during the crunk era, where if you liked any anime or anything kids like, you weren't Black, you know, your Black card was immediately revoked because you liked anime. That was for white people. And going straight to an HBCU, I was like, oh Lord, it's going to be a lot of the same, ain't it? And surprisingly, it wasn't, because Black people, they get more mature and they get more accepting as they get older. When they're kids, they are very closed-minded. But as you get older, it gets a little easier, which was great at Savannah State, especially when I found my tribe. Oh, my God. When I found them people, made the rest of the years fly by, I swear. I think I touched everything.
Well, I'm sure that's it's 4 years, right? So you try to go in as much as you can, but it is a really magical, you know, and of course, HBCUs aren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a great experience that you just can't really put into words, but you try to, and you can talk about it all day and you still can't really, you know, articulate it. But Greg, talk about your experience at Grambling. And this is even talking about this panel, it's crazy to me how quickly time is moving. But Greg, talk about your experience at Grambling and yeah.
So I guess like I'm an old dude, and I gotta preface by that because we weren't as big into like labels. I remember being at Grambling and having like a perfect balance of hood rat stuff. I used to play, basketball at the intramurals all the time. There were ladies there, which, brought happiness. Like one of my homies, we were on the same track. We were in education. And when I first met this dude, he was from New Orleans. He had like a mouthful of gold, you know what I'm saying? Like he just really fit that description of, like a real hood dude, right? Me and this cat are talking and we're vibing out. We got put on a project together and me and him are like killing everybody in the class, and then, afterwards we're talking and he's like, man, you ever heard of Ninja Scroll? I'm like, huh? And he's like, man, come to my room, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, huh? Like, what is this dude talking about, And, we get in there and, you know what I'm saying? We watching Ninja Scroll. I'm watching Ninja Scroll with a, prototypical hood dude who's smart as hell and wants to be a teacher. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it was for me. It was like where we were, like my homies in the room next door, they used to open it up. We have tournaments, like I'm dating myself, but like, before there was a PlayStation type tournaments, you know what I mean? And, it's like everybody's in there, like all like dudes from the country, dudes from the city. And so we went, I do remember some of that, like even in high school, where people was like, oh, you like this, you like that, you that's childish stuff. And I really feel like that is the root of everything that comes next, right? Because they tell you that it's childish if you like these things. They consider these things to be for children. Mm-hmm. They're trying to force you to grow up so fast, and everybody wants to grow up so fast and so you end up leaving things that you really love. Like, I know a dude, well, I know he's no longer with us, but this cat was like one of the most gangsters I know. And this dude had like a little shack where it was like the hangout spot, and this cat had comic books for days. You know what I mean? And so people are sitting there rolling up, doing drugs, whatever, and this cat sitting in the corner flipping comic books. Like, I think, and that's one of the things, one of my missions is like, whatever you like, man, as long as it's not Trump or, I'm not gonna say whatever, but many things that you like, man, like if that really brings you joy as a kid, it'll probably do it as an adult. I go to all these comic conventions. Mm-hmm. It's not the young people that's, spending $200 at the table. No, it's old dudes and old like that are walking around like, because I skipped this part of my life. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm gonna get back into it. So
yeah, how much money did my dad spend at your table? Huh? my dad spent so much money that day, and he got longer.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Can I have some more? But it's real, like, so I like the time that I came up in, not saying everything was right, but now it's like everybody has to like choose, what are you? I never, like, nobody would have called me a nerd in high school. Maybe a couple people, but most people would not have called me a nerd. I didn't fit that description. But then when I'm reading the definition of what, this new nerd is, kind of fit that, So my story was, like I said, it was balanced. We did a little bit of everything, you know what I'm saying? It was great.
But you really hit on something there when you mentioned just the fact that this thing that you were interested in as a child and people imposing growing up, right, too fast, right? But no matter how you slice it, if you had never gotten the comics, right, that wouldn't have made the industry not exist, right? There's still an industry for this, where there are professionals who are the best in their craft, or you know, in all layers and all of the gambit, right? Who are making this content as adults, finding a living and creating this opportunity for a bunch of people to be children, if you will, right? Like to live in these stories. And like, that's just, it's something that like really stuck out to me. It's just like, yeah, these, being a kid, so to speak, but that was kind of why I even did theater, right? It was because no matter who you are, you seek entertainment. So how can you tell me that people, that this is not valued when everybody is seeking this? And to your point, you got 40 and 50-year-old people who grew up stuck doing what they do, you know.
And I'll tell you something else, and I don't want to, you know, dominate or anything, but Kobe Bryant said something when they were talking about like, why were you constantly improving and developing? And he said, I'm always a kid in here. Like, no matter where I am, I'm always thinking of it from a kid standpoint, which is, I got to get better. I want to, you know, do better. I want to be, you know, keep getting better. Whether it's, you know, when you were a kid, you want to learn how to ride a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike, except for China, because she got little legs. Wow. But everybody else, it's like you want to do wheelies and you want to, you know, get wild with your bike riding. You know what I'm saying? No offense, little person. But yeah, so
don't you have to have a little bike to do BMX stuff?
It don't have to be tiny, like
tricycles. You just drag yourself into a ditch.
It doesn't have to be like a tricycle, like. But yeah, man. So that's you know, Natasha Lee loves Sagi.
Best segue ever.
Right. Go for it, girl. Talk about your HBCU experience.
Yes, but even to your point, Greg, David and I have that discussion quite often too. Even people segregating you from your childhood likes, and it's just like, oh well, if you liked Hot Wheels as a kid, most people grow up to collect cars. So we still, you know, oh, you like to play, you know, little league baseball, but then you join a recreational team as an adult, and I'm like, we still transition our things, and you know, we transition the things that we love into adulthood. It's just that it depends on who's viewing what you do as acceptable. But I will say that the HBCU definitely, the experience, getting to see other Black people love the things that I love and getting to share those interests and learn more things. I don't think I would have gotten it. I don't know if I would have gotten it somewhere else, because initially I was going to go to Virginia Tech because I thought that I was going to be a veterinarian. Like I was going to go to their veterinarian school. And but I will say that my first experience with just unfounded, just acceptance, like nobody questioning, like, but you're Black though, and you like that, is with when I met David. I was there for the STEM program during the summer at Bowie State, and there ended up being an issue with my financial, or not even my financial aid, but my housing fell through like the week of like new student orientation, you know, because hiccups be happening. But when I came back,
life.
It's gotta go to the registrar's office, be like, yo, what happened? But and so, you know, everybody was talking about David Hooker, and I'm just like, who is that? I don't know who this dude is. And he happened to come visit some people that were in my suite. And when I came and decorated my room, I had a bunch of anime posters up. I had a huge shelf full of manga, another shelf full of all my PS2 games because I'm dating myself. And so they, you know, and he was the first person to just walk in and be like, this is dope. Not, what is this? Yeah. What are those? It was just like, yo, you have these games, or, oh, is that your anime? Or, oh my God, I love that. And he was like, you should come hang out down in our suite, you know, come by 200 and hang out. And so at first I was like, oh, you didn't question why I like these things or why I have these things, because I never really had a clique of people that just loved the same things. It was sprinklings here and there because my parents were military and we moved around quite often. So I was always switching. I never got to have that core group of people outside of my god sister, who I may, you know, mention it later on, but, you know, from childhood to say like I grew up with these people to their, you know, into adulthood. But like when I got to Sweet 200, and not to mention I brought down all my PS2 games, I brought down a binder full of like anime and stuff that I had like gotten, you know, torrents of to just bring to the suite. And it was like everyone just dove into it, and then we were just all sharing what we loved and what we had. We ended up playing like Soul Calibur 2. We were having tournaments, people using Link as a cheat character. You know, we never really banned from the, you know, tournaments, but we were still playing Halo. We were having mad LAN parties, and it was just that I had came to like off of like I was playing Star Wars Galaxy at the time and City of Heroes, and I was able to be like, yo, y'all want to hop into this MMO with me? And my father at the time had just transitioned from Star Wars Galaxies and started playing World of Warcraft. So I was just like, yo, y'all get into this World of Warcraft. Like I don't think anybody had played, you know, Warcraft 3 or Diablo, but I was like, we need to play this game together. And so David got into the game, our other friend Marcus got into the game. Almost everybody in the suite played it at one point, and we were just in this world together. And it just felt so great that I was in a place where people didn't constantly ask me like, why do you like that? Or, you know, you're not Black enough, you know, or you're not Black because you like these things. And even as an adult, I have faced those issues. Because recently, you know, with the explosion of K-pop here in the States, I just happened to be talking about BTS one day with a friend, and he ended up dropping that his brother, you know, they're Puerto Rican with a lot of mixed groups in their family. And he said that his, you know, he asked his younger brother if he liked it. And he was just like, nah, that's for white people and Black people who don't know they're Black. And I was just like, I was devastated to like have my coworker tell me that. And the fact that like I have been into dramas and K-pop and rap from Korea since like the early 90s, because my father is military and he was stationed in Korea constantly. So I was always getting different mangas or magazines filled with anime, music, dramas, and all that type of things sent to me from my father. So it was like, why can't we have already been introduced to this stuff? Why couldn't this have already been a part of our life? And like, why do Black people have to only like this thing that you tell us that we like, not that we have already gotten into? And it was just that when I came to school and just got to find this collection of people that all like the same thing without questioning why you liked it, or if you introduced something that you had seen or that they had seen, nobody was like, ew, you like that thing? Or, oh, why are we playing this? It was just, cool, let's try it out. Let's do it. Let's see what it's about. And I feel like I don't know if I would have gotten that sort of acceptance. And then for me to like own my Blackness, that I can still be Black and love all these things. And it doesn't matter. I don't have to prove that I'm Black while, you know, still supporting why I like, you know, all these different types of geek things. And I will say that's why I'm so grateful that it is like to have the HBCU Con and to have these spaces where people get to still show that, you know, we don't have to fit in this box as Black people, and that we can be in, you know, we can be in animation and cosplay, games, tech, and it doesn't devalue our Blackness.
True. Facts. And I'm glad you said that about the whole K-pop thing, because the thing that boggles my mind about K-pop, you know, when I watch like the videos and when I listen to the lyrics and hear the melody and everything, it very much reminds me of like 90s hip hop and R&B. Like very much, like it has it
definitely
all
yes
all over it.
Yes.
So like the whole notion of, you know, K-pop making millions of dollars, pretty much, you know, appropriating Black culture, many would argue. And BTS has even said, like, yo, like this is where we drive our inspiration from.
Right. And that is too why I do support
it. And it makes you, you know, so I get that. But I want to, like, time has gotten so far.
Venture Bros, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
No, it's okay. So
hey, you was in the zone. I get it.
Let Venture Bros talk about his HBCU experience for a couple minutes, and then I do want you all to shout out your socials and such. I didn't even get to touch on my Juneteenth question, but it's all good. You always so interesting. But go ahead, Michael, talk about your experience at Hampton and in the military.
All right, so at Hampton, sadly, we didn't have like a Sweet 200 or anything like that. Or at least I never was introduced to it. We didn't have like a anime club or anything like that. Like if they did have something going like that, I had never found it in my time there, sadly. So But to what Greg was talking about earlier, though, like even though I joined the frat, you know what I'm saying, I became a noob, and everybody played games. That's one of the easiest ways I feel like it is to find other nerds. Even though it might not be like a clique of them, you can still find nerds, because if they're a gamer, normally, you know what I'm saying, they don't just play one game. Normally, if they playing Madden, you know they probably playing 2K. They playing 2K and Madden, you know it's almost possibility they might play RPGs. If they play RPGs, they definitely a nerd. So it's like I never had that division with like people in the hood and like playing games or cats in the hood. Cause like my uncle, when he was locked up and my mother would take me to visit him, like as a kid, he used to ask me what was going on in Dragon Ball Z. He'd be like, "So you still watching that show?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "So what did Goku ever?" Because you know it took like 5-10 episodes for Goku to power up. So like, did he ever fight Frieza? I'm like, man, he body Frieza. It's a Super Saiyan. And he was like, what's a Super Saiyan? So like, I remember telling my uncle that when he was in jail. So I never had the thought like, you know, because somebody was hood or a thug that they didn't mess with like nerd stuff. Nowadays, another thing that Greg said was the labels. So even though nerd culture is more accepted now, I feel like now the pressure to like be an authentic nerd is so hardcore. It's like they want to dispel you or discredit you for being a nerd. Like literally, in certain cosplays I've done, because I'm in mild shape, they want to call me like a Chad or something like, "Oh, you're not really a nerd. You're just doing that, you know what I'm saying, because it gets attention." I'm like, what? And they're like, "You just doing that because you try to show off your muscles." And it's crazy. It's like, so now, even though being a nerd used to be taboo, now it's like if you're a nerd, you gotta prove yourself. And I think that's so crazy. You know,
How
what
do
I'm
you
saying?
got time to get all the muscles, bro? You're supposed to be reading these comics.
You know what I'm saying? I can't take an hour to go to the gym because I was gaming all night. You know what I'm saying? So it's just crazy. But yeah, at Hampton, you know, like I said, I wish that I had a more of a nerd experience, because now they do have an anime club. You know, so I wish they had that back when I was there, because I think that would have, you know, brought a lot of people to the genres. And definitely when after college, I got into more things like Tasha addressed earlier about the torrents. I had learned about torrents, so I started getting, and this is before streaming. So I started torrenting all types of anime movies, and I was able to catch up. You know, but if there was like an anime club or something, I probably would have been able to catch up with like all these different movies and shows a lot quicker than like back in like 2014 when I like finally started noticing nerd groups on Facebook and, you know, stuff like that. So
True. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. I'm sorry we didn't get much time.
I didn't even get to do my beatbox.
I know.
No, it's just
90 minutes.
But I appreciate that.
Don't
you
get my
were
hopes up like
excited.
that.
I know, right? I was really interested. I was like, oh, okay.
All right, can you do like a soft beatbox while people shout out their social media? Like a arbitrary beatbox?
I can't beatbox. It was a joke. You know I can't beatbox.
Put him on the spot about the
You used to break dance though. But anyway, why don't you go ahead and shout out your socials first, because you got a panel at 5:00.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. That right there on Instagram, that Greg _Burnham7, Tusky Years, the search for Sadaka, and some other stuff too, probably.
All right, Hook, Mr. Hook, that is.
My bad. I was putting in Greg's Instagram.
I know, I was doing the same.
My bad.
I'm Sabrina. So now I got Alan and Greg.
It's right here on there at Hooktastic. That's H00K Tastic. You can find all of our geeky stuff. Be on the lookout. Natasha and I are working on a relationship strategy guide for couples.
Nice.
Coming out
I don't like him that much though.
end of this year. If you need cheat codes on your relationship, you should probably pick this one up.
Funny,
out there.
Not cheat codes.
I'm saying some people gotta get to these boss fights.
Really, speaking of Cree, you got, because you're nerdy in a relationship. I need to get Jerry on here too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right. So Brown Sugar Outlaw, as it says, right? Brown Sugar Outlaw right there on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. If you type in Brown Sugar Outlaw, you will find me. Also, the Usual Rangers on Instagram and Twitter. We do have a TikTok. We're working on it. Yeah, that's where you can find me. That's where you can follow me. That's where you can learn more about our shenanigans. We got our first con of the year, which is Atlanta Comic-Con. So excited. So if you're going, you can see me and the team there.
Have you done that convention yet?
Yes.
Yes. I heard it was terrible. Is it better? Is it gonna be better?
It's getting better every year. It's still small. You know what I mean? Like they got a big space for a small convention, and it kind of shows, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there are certain things they're not doing right.
They destined her. She can't say nothing bad about it.
Yeah, no.
Listen. They are small, and they do have some like things they need to work on. But overall, it's not too bad. I think they have potential.
Okay, I might slide by because you're
walk through.
Maybe.
Potential.
Walk through.
I'll be down there for the Ranger stop and pop too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who I can drag with me from DC or wherever. But Tasha, why don't you shout your socials out too, please?
Okay.
So you can find me Love Usagi. That is like boop, right down there. So I'm that on all everything, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, anything, PlayStation Network. If you're trying to like game something, you can always find me. I do stream. Since we just wrapped up, the Ratchet and Clank project, so I will be going back to streaming on Twitch. And yeah,
nice. All right, Venture Bros, last but not least, introduce yourself.
You can find me on Venture Bros Cosplay on Facebook, Venture _ Bros on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. And also Chicago POC Cosplayers on Facebook.
Awesome. All right, well, that wraps us up. Thank you so much. And don't forget to follow HBCUCon, at HBCUCon on all of our platforms. We have a link tree. So feel free to check that out. We're on Twitch. We got Discord. We got all that. So, and hbcucon.org is our website. Thank you so much to Subsume, who also helped us kick off our successful inaugural event in April of this year. So thank you so much, Dedrin, again, for all of your help and just support for us. It really means the world to us. And Greg and Tasha, Hook, like Creed, Venture, like all of you have been so supportive throughout this process, and it means the world to us. It really does. And to me.
No. Thank y'all again. Likewise, thank you guys so very much, everyone. Again, for sharing this creative Juneteenth and bringing the best of HBCU and blurred and geek culture and education, to our platform. So it was easy. I'm a fan of all y'all, so it's easy to just say, hey, come on through, right? So with that, talking about our creative independence, y'all are such great examples. So again, I just want to give y'all flowers and say thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. And as we proceed with our creative Juneteenth 2021.
You get on my nerves. I'm sorry.
All right. So we will proceed forward from there. We're going to try to bring you back. So with that, we are right to where there you go. We need a whole house party, pun intended, of fun for the creative lens and the diaspora of talent that is HBCUCon. So one of our premier partners and good friends and absolutely great representation of what we want to see at the space of staying included in your fandom. So again, my name is Dedrin Sneed, and I thank y'all so very much for the opportunity to connect and collaborate with y'all on this Juneteenth that we are celebrating as Creative Juneteenth, where we look at the diaspora of dreams and talents of the African American and African experience as it pertains to the celebration of liberty, civil rights, as well as our shared collaborative futures. And so for us at Subsume, of course, creator-based platform that's looking to champion those dreams and find out how we can be our best creative selves and tell our stories with agency, authority, and authenticity. And with that, we're going to go right on into our keynote here at 5 p.m. So 5 p.m.-ish, right? So again, as we've done all day, and again, we thank everyone for their time and the consideration of celebrating this day. But what we always want to talk about is story. Always the point of story is the point that connects us. That's a transformative and a transformative opportunity for all of us to share the best of ourselves. And so we look at it a lot of times as creators of how do we do this as the thing that we do during the daytime, right? How do we do this as the thing that keeps the lights on and still keeps us engaged in the spiritual and the creative sense? So with that, we want to go ahead and go right to it. We're going to bring in our keynote speaker. Oh, if I don't double tap, that's a gaming move. My apologies. So yeah. So with that, I want to see if I can give you your proper build of fide just in the short sense, but then I absolutely want to make sure we get a chance for you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go right into our keynote speak about how you got in and how did you make yourself a space that you found yourself included in your creative endeavors. With that, today we have Oriel Davis Lyons, who is the creative director at Spotify, but also is the founder of One School, which is a not to say not-for-profit, but is an educational endeavor for people to build portfolios to get into the advertising and marketing experience. So with that, Oriel, pleasure so very much to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's great to be here. Happy Juneteenth. It's cool to be here celebrating you with you guys, and especially I like the twist, the creative Juneteenth. I like that a lot. So
that's great. That's going in my portfolio for the application. So
nice.
This is a work in progress, right?
Cool.
So no, thank you so very much, and I appreciate the connection. And though we've had a chance to speak before, obviously, your example not only of being a premier creative voice, in a media platform like Spotify, that I would presume at this point, pretty much everyone knows what that is. But at the same time, taking that and leveraging it into giving back and giving an opportunity for yourself to be not only a reference but a resource for people that were looking at getting into advertising and marketing and looking at overcoming some of the opportunities that we all know exist in media. And with the shift to transmedia and those points, it's ever so prescient that we as African Americans, we as the Black diaspora, find ourselves the way to tell our story with agency. And advertising is story at the end of the day, right? With that, I don't want to overtalk. Please, I'd love to turn this over and just get a little bit more of your purview of your original experiences, and let's just make it a fun conversation, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how far back do you want me to go? I can go right back like 10 years ago, I guess, how I got in, because for me, I guess it feels like it's come full circle with what I'm doing with One School now, because the way that I got into this industry and into like the creative profession is I didn't really know about it, right? Like my job first as a copywriter and now as a creative director, no one told me about that. And I think that's very common when particularly for young Black creatives, like we are not exposed to the commercial creative industries to the same extent that you see, non kind of creatives of color, so I didn't really know that this was even a job until I was 24 and kind of stumbled into it thinking I wanted to be a journalist originally, and then kind of quickly realizing that I didn't have the attention to detail or the grammar or the discipline to do that. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I think I can write, and I just happened to find a course, an advertising course, which basically was all about putting a portfolio together. And it was 12 weeks. It was 2 nights a week. Every week we got a brief, and it was intense, but it was also just a way in, right? Once you have your portfolio, you have something to show. You're like, okay, like I can take this into an agency and I can show them that at least there's potential. So, I was fortunate that was there, and that was just, a way for me to kind of get into the industry. And then once you're in, it's really about your attitude and your ability to learn and kind of, you just kind of make the most of opportunities. But I guess when I came to the States, I spent a lot of time just focusing right on climbing the ladder, right? Just doing the work that was in front of me. And eventually I started looking around, I think, as I became a bit more senior, and, found myself time and time and again in rooms where I'm the only creative of color, or I'm sometimes the only person of color, right? And you keep having these conversations where I'm either having to like defend my work or defend a reference or explain something to people who just don't get it. And I'm like, what's going on? Why am I not seeing? I'm seeing our culture, and I'm seeing, people who look like me on the other side of the lens, right? Where our ads and our campaigns are full of like Black music and Black art and athletes and voices, and it's all there. But like on this side, on the side that I was, in the kind of creative production side, I was just, one of very few. And as I kind of got more senior and my job became a bit more to do with managing and directing younger creatives, and looking at portfolios, right, I was realizing they were all coming from the same few places, and that's the big portfolio schools across the States. Really good schools, right? Like the quality is good. The students that come out are super talented, but when you look into what it takes to go to those places, it can be $40,000, $50,000 for like a 2-year course, right? And that's usually on top of any college that you've done before that, right? You might have done 4 years at college and already have that debt, hanging over your head. So I was like, okay, well, there's the reason right there, right? That we're not seeing much diversity in the talent that's coming into this industry, right? It's like we're putting a price, like the ticket, the entry ticket costs $40,000. It's like, I would have never been able to afford that. I could only get into the industry because this course that I did was like, I think it was like $500-600, which I could kind of cover with my part-time job, So I guess that for me, I was like, well, I'm at this point where like, what do I do about it? How do I use this position that I'm now in, where I am kind of seeing these portfolios and recommending people and having a bit more of an influence on the places that I'm working, but I can't go and change these schools. I can't. That's a huge system. That's a whole industry right there. So I guess it was last year, right? Felt like a bit of a perfect storm in terms of everything that happened. Right. First, we were kind of, everyone was sent home, and we were all suddenly doing everything online. Mm-hmm. And then everything that happened over the summer, right, brought this like intense urgency for diversity, in the industry. And suddenly it was like brands and agencies were looking for like Black creatives and Black people, to kind of fill out their rosters, because they'd never really thought about it as a problem before. And then suddenly, starting in June, every agency and every brand suddenly realized that this was an issue. So it ended up being this kind of perfect storm of conditions where I said, you know what, I can't obviously keep marching and, as much as I wanted to. You have to go back to work, and you have to, like you said, pay the bills. But I didn't want to leave that feeling of activism, right? That I was feeling on the streets. I didn't want to leave that there and come back to the industry and almost pretend like it wasn't happening. So I thought, well, I could do something about, what I see when I look around in creative departments, and that experience of being one of maybe 2 or 3 Black creatives, in an industry that has taken and benefited so much from Black culture. So I thought, let me put a call out, and I'll help people. I'll help young Black creatives with putting a portfolio together. I didn't really know how I was going to do that. But it actually then kind of turned into this thing where I had like 300 responses from people who needed help. And I was like, okay, that's a bit more than I had anticipated. So we started doing like Zoom calls, right? We just started, I hosted a couple of Zoom lectures on kind of like basics, right, of creative advertising. And then it really just grew from there. The One Club got involved shortly after that. And the One Club, for anyone watching, is kind of the main industry body, you know, in the advertising industry. And really from there, we kind of, made it official and gave it a brand. And, you know, I got to tap a good friend of mine who is another Black creative, Black designer, to his company to do the branding. And we had a name, One School, like shortly after. And last September, we opened the doors and had our first 2 classes in New York and LA, and they graduated in February just gone. And now we're coming to the end of the second semester, and we've got a class in New York, class in LA, class in Chicago, and class in Atlanta. So in a few weeks, there'll be 60 Black creatives coming into the industry who otherwise I don't know if they would be there, right? So that's kind of, I guess, you know, the last 10 years in 5 minutes. But it's been a wild few months for sure.
Oh no, that's brilliant. And again, thank you so much. But because obviously you saw not only the opportunity for yourself, but the opportunity for other creatives to not, well, don't say it won't, but the percentage or the realities of being able to break in and be in that position to have those conversations, again, as we know, are a lot of times slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
So now to your point, and it was obviously we've got a lot of social change going on, a lot of political change, so much is in pandemic on top of that, where you said something earlier, and I always think to this when we're looking at the top of brands, and then I'd love to kind of delineate between your 2 points here of the idea of brands understanding the value, the cultural capital that Black creativity gives. Where in your perspective is it that there's a disparagement of not entrusting the people of those cultures to be able to tell their own story?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? It's because, you know, as brands and right, when we're on the marketing side, we're so quick to go to Black culture for something, for, you know, the things that we know work, right? Like Black culture kind of drives mainstream culture. It sets the tone and sets the pace, right? You see things that make their way to Jimmy Kimmel, right? They originate, you know, on Black TikTok. That like it is at the like core of mainstream culture, and brands know that and they use it and they look for it. But it's weird. There's this disconnect in that for some reason they don't believe that those very same, you know, that very same community that creates so much of this culture can, like you said, tell the story or be behind the camera and call those shots and, you know, make those business decisions about how that culture is portrayed and how that culture is being used. And I think, you know, I think that may be changing. I still hesitate, right? And there's no brands that I want to applaud or anything, because I think the real test is going to be like, what is that commitment to change, you know, for the next year, right? We've just come through this like really crazy year where a lot of brands have said they are committed to change and committed to kind of addressing that disparity. But how much of that is being driven by the fear of being called out, right? Or not wanting to kind of fall behind other brands, you know? And how much of it is being driven because the people at these brands now really genuinely believe that their business and their you know, their approach will be better having more Black voices in the room. And I think that's only time is going to tell, to be honest. And we'll see who's kind of still committed, and when we're, you know, next Juneteenth, right? And the one after that, and like, we'll see who's kind of gone quiet and, you know, and who's still kind of, you know, doing the work. But for me, you know, I just try and use what little influence I do have to make sure that we can try and address some of those imbalances, right? We're not waiting for people to do it for us. And I know that a lot of senior Black creatives that, you know, friends of mine and people that I've connected with via the school are trying to do the same. It's, you know, we're putting Black directors and Black photographers in, you know, in front of clients, and making sure that when we have those opportunities to direct and create teams essentially to tell stories, that we can make sure the right people are on those teams. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question. I feel like it's going to take a long time for that disparity. I'm also, though, like, not really waiting for it, you know. I think that's the general feeling I get when I talk to other Black creatives, is we're kind of done waiting on brands to catch up, and we're done waiting to be accepted into a school. And, you know, it's more like, okay, what can we do for ourselves? And, you know, why do we need to wait for brands? Like, why can't we just do our own brands? And, you know, why do we need to be let into agencies? Why can't we just create our own agencies? So I feel like that's where my head is going. And that's kind of more exciting, right, than waiting on like corporate America to catch up.
And I think you said it so well, that we're tired. We're not tired. We're not waiting. It's, you know, I think the tired, we're well past that phase, right? That for us and in the creative space of, and it is always something that just echoed me, is the danger of waiting for permission, waiting for the chance to then say, okay, now is your time. You know, now this is your month, so we'll focus on you in this one month. Yeah. Or, you know, or we want to point to a particular effort and then kind of rest on our laurels. As you said, you know, 3 to 5 years ago, we have the same passion from brands to ensure that they are, you know, able to at least showcase some sort of solidarity for the Black voices. And like you say, what does that resonate with? So no, that's right on.
Yeah. It's an interesting time for sure. Like, you know, I think there are definitely some brands who are meeting the moment, right? But I think honestly, it's up to Black creatives, really. Like, where Black creativity goes, brands will follow. You know, so I think if anything, like that, the last year has made that even clearer. You know, that the Black perspective is so unique, but it's also so valuable, right? And I think if there are any young Black creatives or just Black creatives watching now, that like, this is the time that, you know, you can really I guess command, you know, what it is you want and demand what you want, right? Because I think brands are just realizing they're faced with this issue and they don't have the answers, and they're turning and they're looking for people to help them. So it's kind of after our scarcity in the industry has almost now made us more valuable, right? So I would just encourage everyone to make the most of that at the moment.
Great point. I want to ask one other question, kind of from the brands, and then we want to again kind of look to the focus of where we can creatively meet that challenge. You said it, and I think to ask succinctly, where for a brand do you feel like there's a point? Where's the delineation between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation when looking at speaking across cultural sensitivities or moments or platitudes like that from your perspective?
Yeah. That it's a fine line, right? And the only way you find that line is often sometimes if you cross it, and and brands they'll find out, because it's not something that I think you don't often know it until you see it, right? And even sometimes creative, like, best intentions in the wrong hands can become appropriation. And I think the only way to kind of ensure that you don't step into appropriation and then that you stay in appreciation and you stay in, like, respect is to make sure that you have the right people on that team, right? Like, I think that is usually where it fails, is when you have teams where maybe they have Black creatives on, but are they being given the responsibility and the power to direct those teams, right? It's there's no point if you have a seat at the table, but no one's going to listen when you put your hand up. So I think that for me is the only like safeguard, is just to make sure that your team, if you're telling a Black story, make sure your team is Black almost all the way through, right up to the person who has the final say. Or if not, that person who generally would have the final say is just going to have to like trust. Like, if you have a Black creative or a Black member of your team come to you and say, hey, this is crossing the line, you have to then go like, yeah, I trust this person's opinion. I can't speak on it. So, for me, I have seen so many instances in the last year of brands where they're kind of like, we need to show our solidarity with the Black community, and they do it by kind of, I don't know, remixing a Stevie Wonder song or something. You're like,
yeah,
not what that is. What it would be is like, make sure that you are using a Black production company, right? And you are paying them the same as any other production company, and so I see it done well in a few cases. There's a great spot that is now kind of, I guess, winning all the industry awards, and quite rightly, done by Beats, right? I think it really, the writing in it really just captured a moment, and it captured the almost the inner voice of a lot of Black people at the time. And I think that's when you see it done well, it connects, right? And it feels true, and it feels authentic. And only the Black community can tell you that, right? So the only way to guard against it is to make sure you have the right people to tell the story, and that they're given the power to tell the story in the way that they see fit. And I think that's the only way, right? Absolutely.
I mean, it's that authenticity and sincerity. I think that comes across in the long term. And to your point, it's fine line. Sometimes you don't know until you cross it, but at least that's having that relationship where you're close enough to the ground to understand you just crossed that line, versus kind of powering past it or moving forward from there.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir. So let's talk about your first point, because I want to make sure you're given enough time to talk truly, about One School. For your purview and for Spotify as a creative director, what's that role like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Cool. Yeah. So day to day, I will look over and create campaigns essentially that are either for Spotify as a brand, like how we appear in the world, for product launches, things that Spotify is doing that we then want to build a campaign around, or sometimes for artists. I've helped out on a few campaigns for artists specifically, but usually it's for like the things that we do as a brand. And I will concept, I will come up with ideas for what that sounds like and what we should say. How do we take this product, this new thing that we've created for listeners, and how do we tell the world? So I come from a copywriting background, so that's still what I do. I do a lot of writing. I'll write scripts, I'll write headlines. I'll come up with just general kind of ideas. And then it's such a great, we're so blessed to have a really great internal creative department, in terms of the talent that we have. The designers, the art directors, like the producers are all just kind of world class. So it makes my job very easy. For me, it's kind of like the dream gig, because it takes the thing that I've done all my career with the thing that I probably love the most, which is music. And I get to just combine those two every day, which is, I feel very, very, very fortunate, to be able to do that. So right now, or actually last year, I was part of the team that did the Wrapped campaign So that's, you know, your end of year, how you listened. So I got to kind of, I'd always got mine, you know, just as a listener.
Right.
And this was the first year I got to kind of be on the other side and see how that gets made and write some, you know, headlines that go on billboards all over the country. And it was cool. It's, you know, being able to make things that the world already likes, right? People like Spotify. They like what we do. They like that they can discover music on the platform. So I'm not trying to convince people to like something that, you know, it's not a credit card or something, or it's not, you know, like it's not new tires for your car or something. Like, you know, I've been in those positions where I've been given briefs, you know, at agencies I've worked at, and it's like, hey, you've got to sell this, you know, this sugary drink. And I'm like, really? Do I have to? I don't drink this. Like, how am I going to convince, you know, millions of people to do it? And yeah, that is the creative conflict that you have often when you're dealing with like the commercial side of creativity. But I don't have that conflict anymore because, you know, I was a huge Spotify user before I got there. And that's only increased, and people generally, they want to know what we're up to. So it makes my job pretty easy, actually. Yeah.
An envious position, right? I know obviously not like that day to day, but at the same time of being able to work with a major brand, to your point, that the marketplace is actively seeking out. So is it more of having continuous content to have something to say, or finding the right thing to say at the right time? Which would you say is the harder of the two when looking at marketing and advertising as a creative in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, for Spotify that they're, you know, I've been there a year, and I've realized they're a very innovative company, right? They're always looking to kind of like offer more or develop like what the experience is. So there's never a shortage of things for us to say. It's more about, you know, what is the tone? What is, like, how do we say it as a brand and as Spotify, you know, and particularly over the last year, how do we respond to things like that happen in culture as a brand, you know, because Spotify is one of those brands that does kind of drive culture. So, but that comes, you know, with a lot of responsibility as well. But yeah, we're never short of things to say because there's always new music. There's always new ways to kind of listen and discover it. So it's more about, you know, crafting the message, you know? So yeah, it's, but I'm kind of stepping in to just a really well-oiled machine, you know, the team that has been kind of doing this for like the last 5 or 6 years. Have just got it down to like an art. So I feel kind of very lucky that I just get to, you know, go off all their good work.
Well, again, I know that obviously you have your own great work there. So and to that, I also want to make sure to speak about the great work forward with One School. And again, also to give a chance to open up conversations or inquiries in the chat. And again, thank you all so very much for tuning in. So overall, what was the pitch for One School for those, again, who haven't had a chance to maybe hear all about it, you know, outside of the initial input?
Yeah. So basically, the tagline really is that One School is the first online portfolio school for Black creatives, and I guess, as I was saying earlier, the goal is to just provide a way into the industry, right, for Black creatives who otherwise just face like obstacles and barriers that basically kind of keep them out, right? And so it's a condensed program. It's really based on the program that I did to get in. It's 16 weeks. It's 10. You get 10 briefs over that period of time. We meet on Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Tuesday is a lecture, right? And we have people from the industry come and speak to the classes. And those are just like, those sessions are so good. They are just like the vibe, right? When you get on Zoom and it's just all black creatives, and we have people like real experienced senior people, like the best people in the industry, best senior Black creatives in the industry come in and speak. And the conversation, I guess, that we have there is so different, right? Because that environment, because we're all coming from the same place and we all have a shared kind of culture and shared references, we have conversations that you just wouldn't necessarily have if you were in just a normal portfolio school, right? We had a big, like, very deep conversation about what role certain brands, play in the Black community, and like the ethics of working on certain brands that, maybe have profited from the Black community at the Black community's expense, right? Like brands that aren't particularly healthy or, and there was a lot of opinions, but we kind of make sure that actually this is the place to have them. This is the place for us to talk about this stuff, because it is about us working out, like, collectively our point of view as Black creatives on creativity and our relationship to brands, and finding out where our line is, right? Because often it's, once you're in the industry, it's too late to have those conversations, right? It's so much harder, again, when you're the only Black creative, to put your hand up and go, this brand and this brief is problematic because they're actually the leading cause of diabetes or something in the Black community, and I can't work on it. Like, it's much harder to say that when your job kind of depends on it, but we want to create a space to have all those kinds of conversations. So that's Tuesday. It's a really, really good evening. It's always like you leave energized. And then Thursday, we review the work that the students are doing, right? So they'll bring in their ideas, and we'll all pull up a seat, and I will kind of go through all their work. Those sessions can be quite long, right? Because they're getting one-on-one feedback. Everyone's listening. They have to present their idea, and I'll kind of give them some notes and feedback, and then they take that away. And then where we're at now in the course, we have about 6-7 weeks left. And those last few weeks, they don't get any new briefs, but they are just going to be putting together their final portfolios. So that'll be 10 ideas, online. They'll build a website, and then we basically have a graduation, and we start setting them up as well with interviews and talks and all that kind of stuff with brands and agencies and stuff. So it's a really fast, like, intense program, but it is, I think, and I hope for the students, it's like a really good experience. I think they get quite close, right? Because we see each other so often. And even though it's like this, it's like it's all Zoom, it's all virtual. Like, I think you still have a closeness. Like, they've developed, the previous class are all, like, really close. They got a group chat going where I'm sure they talk about me, and, they meet up in person, right? So, we're together for, all in all, about 16, 17 weeks. But one of the best things about it is that I also now get to essentially watch their careers grow, right? I get to just be part of their careers, like, as long as they carry on. So, it's only been a year, I guess, not even a year, right? It feels like we've been doing a lot longer. Right now, my focus is how do we make sure that this is still around in 10, 15, 20 years, right? Like, long after I'm out of the industry or doing something else, go start a farm or something, I want it to be the thing that is still there, and it's got a reputation for, like, just putting out the best creatives, not just putting out Black creatives. And that, for us, that is one of the most important things, is that it's not known as just, oh, that's the school for Black creatives. It's like, no, the creatives that come out of one school are, like, the best. They're creatively the best, graduates who are also Black, So our kind of motto is creatively excellent and unapologetically Black. So right now I'm just looking ahead and thinking, what do we need to put in place to make sure that it stays that way, for as long as possible. Oh, you're on mute there, Bedroom.
Okay. And so what a great legacy to see in real time. Thank you. With that, I'm curious for one school, as far as we have a lot of skilled writers and skilled artists and creatives just of all stripes that are watching and involved with us here for Creative Juneteenth. What are some of the particular skills that you feel like from a creative standpoint, and maybe the soft skills that you folks look for in bringing in candidates for one school?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the main thing to say, I guess, is that you don't need to come from a creative background, right, to get into the school. The application process is basically the same for everyone. You got to put together a minute-long video just telling us who you are and why you want to be a creative. You have to answer a brief that goes up on the website a few weeks before the school kicks off. And then you have to show us, like, what are you doing now, like, with your creativity? And that can be open. That can be, like you said, it can be writers, it can be poets. We've got people who are photographers, dancers. All we want to see is that, you have some sort of drive to self-start something, because I think that's it requires so much work that we really have to kind of make sure that people are ready and committed, and that they have the ability to kind of take on that much work. But I think in terms of, the skills you need to be a creative, the main one is a curiosity, right? It's just it's the ability to kind of always keep asking another question, even when you think there's not even a question to ask. Like, it's being able to come up with another one. And that's what we teach a bit, really, over the course, is like, okay, that is the process. You get a brief and it's time to start thinking. And the way, the best way to get to new ideas is to keep asking questions of whatever you've just thought of, right? It's like, what if I did it like this? Or, what if I, set out with this goal, right? Like, one I give to my students a lot is like, set yourself the goal of, like, getting your idea banned from TV, right? And then what does the idea look like that does that, And that's just a way to kind of keep your brain asking questions and getting into more unknown spaces, I guess. But that is the main one, right? That I think you can learn how to write a headline or a script. You can learn Photoshop, in a couple of weeks with YouTube, and you'll know enough. You'll know enough Photoshop or whatever it is to get into the industry. But the main thing that you really have to develop, and I think some people have more innately, is that curiosity, that ability to just always ask and, like, imagine, like, what if I put these two things together? What happens? So you find that often people have that. They have that ability. They have that natural part of their personality, but it's been taken into different fields, right? And I'm just a big believer that, you can take that same curiosity and all we do is kind of redirect it, and we say, right, here's how to package that for the, creative industry. And I think, so that's kind of number one. I think being able to collaborate, right, and being able to collaborate with people is almost the skill that you will need the most, and you'll fall back on the most. You can have all the talent in the world, if you can't collaborate with people, you won't get very far, because it's just that is the job. It's I've never made an ad on my own. I'm always relying or I need someone else. I need the expertise of other people, right? And I think for creatives to see themselves as, like, incomplete circles, right? And the goal is not for you to become a complete circle, it's to find people who complete that circle. And for me, that's, like, the most rewarding part of the job, is, like, I have the vision, and that's your job. It's like, I can picture it,
right?
But finding the people to help me put it together, that is, I think, like what separates a really good creative from someone who's just a talented creative, is being able to pull people together in order to make that vision happen. So that's something that the students learn a lot. And then dealing with feedback and criticism, right, is a big part of the program, because it's the only way to get good quickly. Is, every week they bring their ideas, and every week I, tear some of them up and tell them to start again, and constructively, right? And that's, I think that's important. It's not we're not trying to scare people into being better creatives. It's more, but that is the job, is that 95% of all the ideas I've ever had have never been made, and people have told me they're, not right and not good, right? So that is the job. So you have to learn how to handle feedback and criticism. And some people are good at packaging it and, giving it constructively. Other people are not. They're really bad. They will just yell at you over the phone, and you have to be able to you got to be able to just brush that off a little bit and not let it kind of, consume you or take it personally, and always think, you can have another idea. You are a creative with a well of ideas that runs deep, and you can always come up with another one, So I think those are probably the three top things, right? That, that I think anyone can kind of learn, right? Oh, Devin, you're on mute again.
Trying to be respectful and keep out any ambient noise in that, and then I just start rambling off. So but with that, I wanted to ask, the speed of advertising was something I've always been curious about, and I know some other points as well, where something happens and it's a moment, and you have to quickly act or interact with your customer, the people that's your audience. Yeah. What's the thought of something being well said versus well done? I guess in the speed of which it takes that we are hyper communicating and very sensitive to be the first person to react, or is that a thing that from either One School or Spotify that you see as an advantage or an opportunity?
Right. You mean like kind of just being able to react quickly, right? And yeah, I think now speed is kind of everything, right? Like the conversation and culture and society, it just moves at a different speed now than I think we all can grow up with, and that's just being purely driven by social media. So yeah, I think that it is a pain point, I think, for a lot of brands, in that they're not built for speed necessarily. There are many layers of people who need to see something and approve something and have changes, and so that can often slow things down and that all that time that you're not saying something, people are reading that, right? The silence is almost speaking for you sometimes, especially over the last year. I think that's the main thing that we've seen in the last kind of 12, 18 months, right? Is that things can happen so quickly, and but I think the key with speed is also just knowing what you stand for, right? It's a lot easier to respond to something if you already know what your principles are, right? And the issue I think that we've seen in like the last year is that a lot of brands realized they hadn't really thought about a lot of this stuff. They'd never they hadn't developed any principles around this, or they'd never tried to put them into words, and trying to kind of have a deep conversation about like what your core beliefs are, when people are like, we need a statement in 24 hours. Those two things just don't go together. So I think for me, you can achieve that speed that is necessary, right? Because that is just the speed that culture moves at. But you need to do the work of understanding like who you are. And this isn't just for brands. This is just, I think, for all of us, right? When we are asked to respond to things quickly, it's so much easier when you know exactly where that response is coming from, like what your beliefs and what your kind of point of view is on the world. And that work takes years, and that's kind of it's nonstop. So I think for me, I think the way to kind of achieve that balance, right, is you can be first as long as you've done the work on yourself, first. But I think we've seen it go wrong so many times, right? That hopefully people will learn that lesson a bit, and maybe aren't rushing to fill the gap, because I think it backfires, right?
It happens, right? That again, like you say, that there's a just to make sure I wasn't muted at that time. That there was that being not apprehensive or cautious seems to not be the way, I guess, that marketing and advertising is able to move. And so with that, we have so many cultural moments, right? That it seems like we're always inundated with that. Now, to be specific to music, perhaps with Spotify, or just in the general beliefs from there, what kind of teachable skills can we use as creatives to make sure that we're still addressing those things in that same standpoint? Or is that something that we just have to be in the moment and understand?
Yeah. I think it's the again, the biggest skill or ideal that you can fall back on is sometimes that questioning, right? Like, why do I feel the need to say something, or is it appropriate for me to say something? And that's something I think about personally when things happen, when cultural moments happen.
Right.
Like, I ask myself, do I have something to say and something to add to this? Will my voice in the conversation move it forward, or be productive, or help other people? And I think that is kind of the skill that I've tried to take more time to learn, like over the last year, because it's so much easier to voice your opinions, right, and to be part of these cultural moments. But you're also sometimes taking part in them when your emotions are running high, and for me, that was happening last year a lot, and I was just like, I was angry and I was upset, and I would get on Instagram, I'd be like, boom, boom, boom. And then, people are kind of popping up and I'm having these conversations, and it wasn't bad, right? It was actually some really important conversations with people who I've never talked like that with. But after a while, it was it took a lot of energy from me. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to just be a little more, not hesitant, but I'm just going to be a bit more thoughtful about how I take part in these moments, and I think that is probably the best lens for not just brands, but people, right? Is just to always think, what have I got to say, and what does it add to this, right? Is it unique to my perspective, and that's one thing I've tried to do, is not speak for other people. I'm just saying, from my perspective as as a Black creative, or as a biracial person, as a father of 2 kids, it's like, the more I speak personally, I think the less the less I'm generalizing, I guess, for people, and the less I'm taking on this role of speaking for all Black creatives, which people are looking for you to do a lot, and that's I think something that I've also had to be kind of mindful of. It's like, there are very few of us, so people often look for you to speak for all Black creatives, and I'm like, no, we all have very different experiences. So I guess that's going back to your question. I think the main skill is really to always ask those questions. Is it right for me to say something at all in these moments? And I think, again, brands, I've seen just a few tweets in the last 24 hours, right, where you're like, no one asked that question. no one said, oh, is it right for me to talk about our football team on Juneteenth? No one's there asking that question, and then you finally you put it out, and Twitter will tell you, and that's what you don't want.
Oh yeah, that's to your point. at that point, you probably crossed that line and not close enough to the ground to understand. I want to make sure, and again, thank you so very much, Oriel. I want to kind of give our closing opportunity to talk about hopefully this idea of creative Juneteenth. Obviously, we've had a great time here listening to your purviews and your impact of how we're able to narrate and tell story, from a larger brand standpoint, and from how we as creatives can look to get our voice out there. This idea of Juneteenth, right? It's obviously been a holiday and an endeavor, for Black culture for some time. But now we're seeing something that's resonating and now being absorbed into like a larger space. And at this point, from American culture, which a lot of times is a dichotomy of just global culture, from the way that we influence. What can we do from a creative standpoint to make sure that that we as creatives, again, whether or not we're advertising for another brand or whether we're trying to make ourselves our own brands, what would you say to someone that's looking at this realization of all the things that we just talked about and looking still to try to find the best way to utilize their voice?
Yeah. You mean for Juneteenth specifically, or?
Well, it could be for Juneteenth. I would say start as Juneteenth is kind of awaken that conversation. Good clarification. Well, we can expand it past Juneteenth. I think we're looking at like a larger perspective, of how voice changes and impacts. Juneteenth is, I think, could be one good example.
Yeah, I think what I tell my students, right, is that the way I came into the industry was. I was learning how to fit in to an industry which is essentially was created by white men, and all the most awarded work. I won't say the best work, all the most awarded work, the work that we held up as the best we've done in the industry was all done by white men, a few white women. But I came into the industry almost trying to prove that I could do that too. I could do the work kind of like them and kind of, almost convince my bosses and my, the people I worked with in the agencies that just because I was a Black creative doesn't mean that I couldn't do all this work that the industry kind of considers the best. Right. But so for a long time, I was kind of almost like trying to adopt a voice that wasn't mine and trying to write in a way that wasn't me. And I was not using my own references and my own life experience to influence my work. And now I think, what I tell my students is it's the opposite, right? It's that your perspective and your references and your culture are now so valuable to the industry. Like it should be in everything that you do, it should, the work that you do should feel like it could come from only you, right? And so that, I think that is the biggest shift, and that's kind of what I kind of remind them, hopefully over and over again, is like, our goal is not to fit in now as Black creatives. It's like, we don't need to fit in and convince, the industry to take a chance on us and that we can do what you guys do. It's like, no, we don't want to do what you do.
Right. Like
we know what we do and we know we can do it well. And I think that's the biggest shift I think that's happening. So if anyone, like, if you're starting out, if you are in that creative space, I would say, tap your own experience, tap your life, your references, and put all of that in your work, right? If you want to, because that is the way that you tell real stories, authentic stories, and stories that don't exist out there right now on scale, right? We know them internally, we know them, we tell them to each other, but the next step really is telling our community stories at scale, and I think like just putting all of ourselves into those stories is the next thing, right? And that's kind of, I think, going forward, what I've almost like told myself I'm going to make up for lost time, because I feel I wasn't able to do that. I was, too afraid to do that for a large part of my career. When I tried, I was told to sometimes take those parts of the story out, like point blank. So I think that's been the biggest shift. And that's the thing that's going to really dictate, I think, the future of like just the creative industries is that we will kind of set the narrative a lot in the way that white men in the 50s essentially created the template for advertising as we know it and still followed, right? Mostly today. I think what's happening now is young Black creatives of color are creating that template that I think the creative industries will start to use and are trying to use and trying to catch up with. So I think, going forward, put your whole self into your work. That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it valuable. And that's what we need.
Yeah, so well said. And I think to that point of being able to celebrate and our most authentic self is the best self-determination, of freedom and of the liberty to think and dream and be part of a shared future. So with that, Ariel, this kind of concludes our point, but I want to make sure that we get a chance to figure out how to follow you and the endeavors that you, again, are helping to help us build this bridge into tomorrow. So how can we keep up with you in that work?
Cool. So I'm not particularly active on Instagram or Twitter. Again, that was, as I was saying, that was for me just being a little more thoughtful about how I interact with the world. You can find me on LinkedIn, though. I use LinkedIn a lot. That's been where I've kind of made a lot of good connections. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm just under my name, Oriel Davis Lyons. Or you can check out oneschoolus.com for all the kind of latest with the school. We will be open for applications again in the next few weeks. Also on Instagram, I think One School US on Instagram is a good way to keep up with the school there as well. Thanks for having me, Dedrin.
Oh, no, the pleasure's mine. Thank you so very much. And again, we appreciate you and giving us this opportunity to excel and be able to tell our story. So, Ariel, thank you again.
Thank you, Dedrin. Happy Juneteenth, everyone.
Yes, sir. Take care. Take care. All right. And with that, that's Oriel Davis Lyons, not only of Spotify as a creative director, but also founder of One School, an opportunity for Black creators to build their platform portfolios and bridge into the creative careers of advertising and marketing. And so we are at the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. Again, thanks everybody so much for your time and attention. My name is Dedrin Sneed, and I'm the founder of Subsume, a creative-based platform that is the intersection of creativity, technology, and community. And we are looking to bring our next guest in, just as want to make sure that we fix our little background here. And so going to do a quick update, if we may, for just our background that I think we now have set. And as I show this, because I want to make sure as we are bring up our next guest as we come up to the top of the hour, that we have our house in order. So with that, we've got one more hour of engagements before we switch to the digital side. But of course, you can all still imbibe in our vendor space. Our digital event on Gamer Jive is still running well. I think we have at least 40 plus digital vendor spaces as well. Keep in mind that we still have our NFT sale with the cryptocurrency from artist Keith Cross and being sponsored by Guapcoin, where you, for just a $20, you can get your own crypto digital wallet and bid on 6 pieces of exclusive commemorative Juneteenth NFTs. And so with that, we'll conclude that, of course, at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, as an update, we'll consolidate all of our movies again for a replay this Sunday. So please be on the lookout for that updated schedule as well. And so I get a chance to bring on another guest that has been some time since we spoke last, but at the same time, someone I've followed and admired from afar, just for the same point of not only his creative endeavors, but literally putting his body on the line to become the characters that he sees within himself, and a point of representation. So with that, I want to bring this young brother up and get a chance to reconnect. So Brendan, I think we've got you here on our floor. So let's bring you to the stream. And so we are blessed with the visions of the great otaku.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. I say, doing well. Thank you so much. When last we spoke, we were raising Nerf guns in victory, for human versus zombies.
That's right.
Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to find that hype tape because I'm sure the internet doesn't forget. right? It's there
I
somewhere.
remember that there's definitely some good pictures out there.
Yeah. So there's some parts of that, but I think that was the last time I might have saw you in human form in that sense. But since you have transcended that form and taken on the many roles, all under the guise of the great otaku. So knowing that there is the title of the story is building character in and outside of the ring, and wanting to be cognizant of management of other points. I'll let you introduce yourself, and please give us your titles and your proper, so we can credit you there, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure. My name is Brendan Williams, also known online as the Great Black Otaku. You can find me on pretty much anything if you search that. We actually, like you said, we met at University of North Carolina. Since then, I've gone on to play professional football in the National Football League. And what I'm currently doing is right now I'm a professional wrestler for WWE and live streamer in my free time. So I do a lot of weird, fun, cool stuff. So it's really cool to be here with amongst other Black creatives, and I'm excited to talk and catch up.
I know, same. Thanks so very much. So yes, and again, recall that you've had that handle since your UNC days. So that's, obviously knowing you for football, that you were great at football at UNC. But when I saw that, when I followed you then and saw that title, I was like, see, he's of the initiated. So
we're
right.
of the elite brotherhood of
exactly.
It's Black Otaku Council. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So it could have been the the cabal right then and there, and it was. Again, I've been able to follow your experiences there. So now again, with so many creative endeavors that you go on screen, in the ring, and in your own personal life, the idea of building character, particularly as African Americans, we look at the idea that we are not a monolith, that we do different things, that we all imbibe and take in what we can. What are some of the things that, from I would say, geek culture standpoint, that you're most passionate about, or what are some of the things that have really shaped the Great Black Otaku?
Well, it's just like you said, Great Black Otaku has been my handle since college. It was before even kind of stepping out onto the broader stage of the world and on TV and all football and all that. So I've always been very passionate about, like you said, we are not a monolith. We all have our own different interests, and one of the things I've been passionate about for almost my entire life has been showing those differences, showing people that we do have different interests. We have the same interests as other people. Things like that. I as I was listening to the last speaker, I was just thinking specifically from the standpoint of music. I remember as a kid in like middle school or high school, if I was vibing on my iPod or something and somebody were to sneak up behind me, he's like, "Hey, what are you listening to?" I have to switch it over to a Ludacris song because that was it had to be, that's what it had to be at the time. Otherwise you're kind of weird. And I wanted to, my platform is to present yourself as you are, as your interests, and not to be ashamed of it in any way, because as I've gone on to find out, there's a lot of people that look like me and talk like me that are also interested in the same things. And I think that's the greatest thing in the world.
I know, absolutely. And being able to show through those differences of interest that there's more similarities. I think that's the thing I've always tried to be about, is that we all like so many of the same things, but then it's this, I don't know, it's almost this thing that's, okay, I can't let anybody know. I can't have anybody understand, like, oh, I really like comic books, but that's not the cool thing. Now,
yeah. I'm glad it's becoming. I mean, maybe it's for the best, maybe it's for the worst, but it's becoming the cool thing. It's geek culture is the popular culture at this point. You can't. I'm sure the kids in high school all know what all the Marvel superheroes were, like I did when I was in high school. So, the world is, with the internet and everybody being able to communicate, the world is so much smaller now. Everybody's able to communicate with people that are into the same kind of stuff that they are, and with people who maybe they wouldn't normally get to interact with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think that's been a big precursor to geek culture. To your point, it's really just culture at this point.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah, if you can, let's see. I'm trying to think. Naruto's line, was it with Gucci, or I'm trying to think of which it was. When it's like when it's to that point where like, okay, now we got to be down with anime.
Right.
It's like Gucci or
When,
Louis Vuitton had a run with Michael B. Jordan. I remember
Yep.
seeing it at San Diego Comic-Con. I was like, there's no possible way I could afford it, but it's very cool.
it's cool
but
to
yeah.
see. Not for me. I'm down with my Walmart old man shirts, but
yeah. Oh, you know that. No, I'm right there with you, bro. It's but to that point, when we're at that apex where for what we consider to be geek culture, popular culture, for things like anime and role playing games and things like that, but somehow we as Black people don't see ourselves represented.
Mhm.
Right. And I think the capacity that a lot of us share, that passion and appreciation for that culture, is always a thing that I felt like I had to be in that space to try to fix that. Right. So it's the
Absolutely.
idea of
And
Subsume trying to say, okay, we can make that stuff with appreciation and in collaboration. But well, I'm giving you all a lot of money. We should at least see something.
yeah,
Why don't you guys-
and it is a matter of, like I said, I wasn't in high school that long ago that I was, afraid to show those interests. It's about being, publicly yourself and letting other people like so that they know that they can get into these fields. They can, they can build their own product. They can build their own space within these spaces.
Yeah, and I think just like any brand, just like Oriole as a acclaimed marketer would say, should know their audience.
Mhm.
Now, do you think that a lot of these programs? Now, of course, when we talk about geek and popular culture, we're talking about it from a global standpoint, right? So, like a lot of animation, of course, exists and originates out of Asia. Likewise, a lot of role playing and tabletop games come out of Central and Eastern, and Western world, Europe for the most part.
Mhm.
But again, by the time it gets to America, which is this great melting pot of culture, we kind of get what we get, right? And the idea that, Cartoon Network says, okay, this Dragon Ball Z, it seems like, we'll throw it on. Maybe somebody might like it.
Somebody
right?
might be into it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And it just, completely revolutionized like a generation. Same with Naruto, right? Some other points. We're just kind of saying animation, but again,
what's fascinating to me is using Naruto specifically. Naruto having run for so long, you kind of go from the point where Naruto was more in line with the Dragon Ball Z model of, this is a Japanese show for Japanese people, and then you see it kind of expand in such a way where it's like, okay, no, this is a global brand. This is for all kinds of people. And even, you can tell there's points in like Naruto and Bleach where they were like, yeah, Black people are vibing with this. We should make sure we have some Black people representation in this show. And that's awesome. That's the coolest thing ever for me. It's like, it's so validating to see.
Yeah, and I think eventually we are making that point. Like for example, was it DR Chicago as an African American owned animation studio there in Japan? Get a chance to have talked with those brothers at least once, but it's the idea like we are making slowly but surely. I think there's that attrition's happening, but from a popular culture standpoint, because we have so many classics, we have so many points that we still see that it's still an opportunity, right? From your purview on that, is that something that we not say necessarily we should expect to change, or is that something that we as fans have any really point of influence in?
I think it's something that's in the process of changing. It's these things obviously take time and things move faster now than they ever do. But I think we really are getting to the point where when I was getting drafted into the NFL, I was interviewing agents, and one of the agents really got me. I ended up not signing with him, which was funny, but he was like, oh yeah, no, we're going to get you deals in Japan. I know you're into Japanese stuff. I know you're into anime and stuff. We'd like to get you over there. And he explained to me the process of, their Ministry of Culture having this Cool Japan brand, where their job was to get the Japanese culture out of Japan and into essentially what it's done. It's done an extremely good job that people like you and me can now sit here and have a conversation about anime and manga and stuff like that. So from like a market standpoint, that's something that they're obviously looking for. It's just so far away that it takes time for it to kind of, the same way that we got the trickle down of Dragon Ball Z over the, you know, when did Dragon Ball Z get here? In the late 90s, and it's a show from the 80s. Like, it's the same way. It's kind of, we're trickling back and you're starting to see the results of that. But it is still a thing that you need to make sure that you're openly supporting the things that you're into, that you know, that everybody knows that there's a market in your community for the things that you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well said, Brennan. With that, let's transition from the characters that we see in screen, but the character that you get a chance to see in the mirror, and the character that we get a chance to see a lot of times here online. Now, looking at building yourself or imagining yourself as a professional wrestler, just from the top, what does it take from you as a standpoint as an athlete to now make a persona around the physicality of being a professional wrestler?
So I've always been a good athlete for my entire life, but I always kind of fit more in with artists and creatives and people like that. And that was something that I always felt was missing from me as a football player, was that creative aspect and that kind of second dimension to just, you know, there's the performance, and then there's, you know, there's the presentation, and, you know, the showmanship and all the cool stuff. So I've always been more of a professional wrestler than I was a football player. And it was a pretty quick and easy turnaround for me. So as soon as I was done playing football, thankfully I had made some connections when I was with the Texans to meet Booker T, who I'm sure is a lot of people in this chat's favorite wrestler from when they were kids. And he trained me, got me ready for a tryout with WWE, and I transitioned pretty quickly. And the thing that I fell in love with the wrestling business so much was the fact that it was the athleticism with the creativity, with the, you know, presentation, the creating a character, designing a costume, designing, you know, the screens that are behind you and what everything looks like. Like, that's the stuff that I was meant to do for my entire life. That's clearly what I was built for, in a way. So it's been really cool to kind of, you know, get into this field and kind of carve my own path in it.
Oh, fantastic. Now, for the input of say, like, the design of your costume, of your persona itself, how much of an impact do you directly get to have on that? And is there any type of how you say, like, any assistance, or like any part of this is like, oh, we should market you as fill in the blank, versus what I really want to do is that?
It kind of depends. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's kind of a, you know, a brand unto themselves where I work. So at least in my experience, I've had pretty good, that I've been able to, at least where I am right now, I've been able to kind of craft my own image and make something of it and try and fit it into what they want, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that does.
It's where there's less direction, there's more room for creativity. And I didn't have very much direction. So it's kind of been cool to just like, oh yeah, no, I want to, yeah, this is what I want. This cool with you? Like, it's definitely like this cool. I'm going to keep pushing until you say, no, that's not cool. But it's kind of like a gradual process of that. And I'm still very much in the middle of it and creating the character for everybody to see on a regular basis. But we're figuring it out. We're all figuring it out.
But it's fun to see you figure it out on a week to week basis. And of course, again, having the precursor, experience before, where again, we're literally getting to see you develop yourself and your talent into the character that you want to be. So that's to say, make the same transition. You know, what is the final form, you think, for the wrestler persona that you'd like to see?
Well, they always say in wrestling, the best characters are yourself turned up to 11. Like the loudest, most, marketable version of yourself that you can be. And obviously I'm so new in this business that it's kind of a matter of you know, you got to build that trust. You need to establish, it's like, yeah, no, trust me, people will like me. But I don't know if anybody had seen me before I got to WWE. My character was freaking Yasuke. It was Big Black Samurai. It's like that's where you know, that was, if I had full creative control, I'm going to be Big Black Samurai and be exactly what I present myself as online, as the Great Black Otaku and all that. But it's kind of a matter of, you know, building that trust, kind of establishing and figuring out what works and putting it all together. But I think my final form, as you said, would be very much me just cranked up to 11.
Awesome. So now let's transition to you got a very great online channel and existence as well. So as part of your transition in between football, and it seemed like, well, prior to, obviously, but, you know, post football and into your transition into this next career, you know, I was able to follow and understand that, you know, you've got a lot of online presence in the sense of where from gaming and LARPing and doing these other parts. I mean, of course, I know it was always there, but how was that for you in finding an outlet to further develop yourself as now a digital character in the sense of Great Black Otaku?
It's the best, because that is the full range of freedom, creative freedom, and character development and stuff that I don't necessarily get in my place of work. Is, you know, it's online between, you know, my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/GboVT, if you want to check it out. I'm an octopus anime boy. I play video games, sing songs, do all kinds of fun stuff. Check it out. And just as soon as I got into like Dungeons and Dragons, maybe I guess 10 years ago now, it kind of just became, you know, the whole tabletop role-playing games and creating characters and telling stories. And when that became like a cool thing that people did online and do like podcasts and stuff like that, I was like, oh, this is my tribe, this is my brand. So it's been really cool to be able to kind of do all of that kind of on the side. And, you know, if I'm creatively frustrated at work, I'm still able to do whatever the heck I want online, because there is a market for it, and there's people that want to watch it, and there's people want to hear stories from, you know, what I want to tell. And I think that's awesome. I can see some of them in the chat right now. Hey guys, yeah, thanks for coming.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. Again, if you got any questions for Brendan in the chat, by all means, you know, drop those in. And now I feel like I've done you a disservice, because there were so many of those times we passed each other, and my book bag was full of Dungeons and Dragons books. I could have slipped you one. You
could have got me in a little bit, because I think it was just like a little bit after college that I was like fully delved into it. But yeah, I that's my biggest regret, is I wish I would have gotten into it in college, because I thought I play so much more, you know, digitally and online now, that I kind of missed out a little bit on the sitting at a table, rolling physical dice kind of thing.
Oh, no worries. Now, my expertise of that is more akin to Stranger Things. Like, I played it since early back when it was the devil stuff. But at the same time, no, it's the best. And again, it's glad to see that, again, the way that, you know, programs and games like this kind of build community is absolutely why we should hopefully see ourselves included more into that. Mm-hmm. Kind of in some of all these cool things that we see that you do, right? So you're living our best life, and a lot of times I live vicariously through you, through a lot of these cool things. But with that, what we want to ask is, you know, now that we're in this, we have such a cultural and social shift that we're seeing. I don't know, like it just seems like that not having Black voices in a thing seems to I don't know what to say. It's like, if you don't have Black culture as part of what you're doing, that it seems like you're at a disadvantage, right?
Right.
That we know we're cultural creators, and we have a cultural capital. But again, all these things we just talked about, that sometimes we still miss the mark in being included in that part. How do you see that, you know, as creators, and like even for yourself and your creative point, how best can we ensure that we are being our most authentic selves when trying to be a part of or engage in the spaces that we yet still see that we're not fully included in?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, it's all about just being active in that space. Since becoming a pro wrestler and being in WWE and working with my good friend Austin Creed, who's another great example of, what we can do if you just take the reins and make your own thing. I've had the opportunity. I've worked with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, and will continue to do so. And as long as I put myself in that space, put myself in that conversation, then our culture, our stories will have to be told, because we're there. It's all about being there and being present and doing your thing and showing the world that this is something that people are interested in.
Oh, awesome. So that's fantastic. And to your point, I think that the answer is there. I think we're closer than we've ever been before, though there's still a space between that we'll need to overcome. Just lastly, what is your next step for just any of your creative endeavors, whether that's online, for your time in the ring or time beyond, that you feel like you can make the most impact creatively?
Well, it's really just I'm kind of like in this position where I really feel like I'm starting to hit my stride in a way. I'm where I want to be professionally. I'm doing what I want to do online with my own brand, with the Great Black Otaku brand and my VTubing brand and stuff like that, and just content creation. My goal, I joke around, is that I want to beat every website that everybody uses. So like I wanted to be verified on Twitter. I want to be verified on Instagram. I want to be a Twitch partner, which I've gotten all those. So I'm working on being a monetized YouTube partner right now, which is the next step to beating the entire internet. So that's my next big thing, is to get I've got the necessary subscribers, but I need a few more hours of viewing time to get that achievement. But it's just to continue to keep doing what I'm doing and just keep growing and entertaining people, because that's all I really like to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, I'm sure that'll be yet another gem added to the Thanos Gauntlet soon enough, right?
Yes.
We'll do our humble part here with Subsume, obviously, the like and share points, but it is all about that and achieving those life level unlocks. So, I really, I've been proud of you, but at the same time, man, you're such a great example of, again, just following passion and saying, okay, I can do this. And so
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So again, I feel very smart to be on the ground floor, that have seen this, again, picking up Nerf darts to now. Right. So yeah.
What a journey. Yeah,
exactly. And the best parts of the journey still to come. So so man, lastly, where can we follow you, keep up with you in those spaces, man, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Great Black Otaku. You can also find me on Twitter at Mace the Wrestler. That's my wrestling work account. And you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Jibo, Jibo, like Great Black Otaku, BT. So I stream there multiple times a week. If you ever want to come hang out, watch some fun, entertaining stuff, I'm always there. So.
Awesome, man. Thank you so very much again, Brendan. Happy Juneteenth to you, and happy Father's Day. Because again, I think that's the last question.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, I want to just shoot that out. How best can you raise the next Great Black Otaku generation?
So I don't know what I did to women in my past, which is nothing. But I only have girls. I have 3 girls, 3 daughters, and they run me ragged every day. I'm glad they're watching TV right now, so you probably haven't heard them screaming and fighting each other. But I was just talking about this with my parents last night. It's about being present, being there for their interests, being an outlet for them to come to you and feel comfortable talking to you and being able to use you to lean on, because that's your job as a parent, is to be there for them regardless of what they're doing or experiencing, is just to be that rock for them to build higher and higher, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, that's powerful and poignant. So with that, again, we'll keep it going. We won't make it this long again. I'm sure I'll be bothering you as soon as it finishes, but To that, bro. Thank you so much, Brennan. Again, Brennan Williams, everyone, the great Black Otaku. Thank you so much for being a part of our Subsume Summit and our Creative Juneteenth. And a happy Juneteenth to you, bro.
Happy Juneteenth to you too. Thanks for having me on.
Man, pleasure's all mine. And for us as well. Thank you so much. So with
Good to catch
that,
up.
all right, man, take it easy. Yep, we are running right along. So thank you so very much. We will continue the conversation. And again, thanks for everyone in the chat. And I'll make sure, because Ed might have been little old me that maybe didn't get everything in, but try and get everything updated here. See if we can go back and add and save. But there you go. When we're live, we want to make sure that we've got everybody included in this amazing chat. So again, thank you so very much. My name is Dejan Sneed, and we just finished talking to the great Black Otaku, Brendan Williams. And as we've been talking with a whole day of creators and connectivity from just not only popular culture, from education, from innovation, and from social entrepreneurship. Looking at the way that all of us together can tell our stories, and vibe in each other's culture, and appreciate each other in our most authentic selves. That is the power of Subsume. And with that, what we'll do is take one step back before we come back for our final close. Give us just 2 minutes. We want to see if we can bring in our last guest before we go to the 7 o'clock hour, which will happily be streaming some fantastic content from Micah Sozo, an amazing artist and fellow collaborator. So with that, we will be right back. And welcome back with sound to Subsume Summit and Creative Juneteenth. My name is Dedrick Sneed, and thank you all so very much for your time and attention. And we are getting ready to wind this thing down. So I've got till the 7 o'clock hour to kind of connect with you. And again, thank you so very much for being part of this Juneteenth celebration. So though this is the formal federal opportunity for us to recognize as the United States to talk about Subsume Summit and while we are here, we really want to just talk about what this day means. The idea of Juneteenth and the idea that, ancestors and folks of color, particularly the enslaved Africans specifically, of the state of Texas, decided that they were not going to wait for permission to celebrate their freedoms. And in that same celebration of independence for the folks that had built this nation, who have not only built this nation, but fought for this nation. And likewise, are part of the fabric of this culture, decided that they could envision themselves represented, free, willing, and able to share of themselves and of their own communities. And so the idea of Juneteenth comes to us here in the year 2021. And so it was my idea to not only just celebrate Juneteenth as we had before, because if you've heard on the chat, we here in the South have had a lot of celebrations of it. And that's not to say it hasn't been in other spaces. But again, I think the idea of the culmination of what we're seeing here now is a lot of intersections and of change, a lot positive, a lot innovative, but still showing that there's opportunities to come. So the idea of trying to make something like this with Subsume last year, which for those who have followed us know that, we've been holding these Subsume sessions and this is year 3. So I'm very thankful to that and our Subsume team that we'll look to shout out here towards the end. But I wanted to read a book to kind of close things out. Now, we've had a lot of great authors, and we'll have more authors to come because, again, we still have this show going on here over Father's Day until tomorrow afternoon. And just want to take some minutes to share with y'all probably the most influential book that I've ever read. And it's so much so that I have to take care to even hold this book. And, it's a book I remember as a child. And it's so important to, I think, who I am. And I think very appropriate to share with y'all these days. So with that, let me show y'all this book. It is our family, it's our family record. And if you guys get a chance to see, our main family surname is Jefferson out of Eastern North Carolina, Snow Hill, North Carolina, particularly. I'm always shouting out. But right there at the Wayne County, Greene County line, there's a small space called Fayetteville, North Carolina. And obviously not way before, but before my time, the oral history of our family got collected for the last family reunion that I can think of that I attended was in 1983. And I don't remember much out of that. I was a wee little lad, but at the same time, I do remember the pictures of people having these T-shirts. And so this is like an ancient text in tome, and probably one of the oldest things that my family probably, at least that I can think of that we've had. So not to opine over this too much, but like this is like the legacy book. And to understand there's so many people that I've talked to that unfortunately don't get a chance to even trace themselves back 2 or 3 generations, particularly here as African Americans. And there's so many reasons that we all know, and not to go into too many points of anguish, but the family opportunity for Black families to exist and survive and thrive in the same place, in the same space, for a myriad of reasons, especially in the Deep South, really just to get a chance to be chronicled and put in. But I say all that to say that family members that I don't even know, that even though they're in this book, and my generation is the last generation of young kids that got put into this book, that we really didn't get a chance to know. We didn't get a chance to understand who these people were. They're blurs and images in my mind now. I have a very small and intimate family, though the average name rings well and loud and proud in in that space. So I got a lot of cousins. But at the same time, thinking about legacy and thinking about like creating things like this. Now, I call myself a writer, but what foresight somebody took to like write something like this. Not just to write something like this, but it's us. And I think it's the idea of things like this being part of our shared history and our shared legacy, not just for the Yelvertons, but I think just for Black culture, and even more so for the communities that I want to be a part of. And I see myself as part of everything that I've shown you today. So whether that's manga and anime, whether that's technology, whether that's social justice, or just plain old fashioned collecting comic books and toys, like I want to be a part of all that. And so that's where the idea of Subsume came from, is I want to be included without a lot of extra effort. I want to be who I am, when I am, and why I am, and understand that that's good enough for me to be a part. And I've got to be careful with this thing because it's falling apart. But I want to read. I want to conclude Juneteenth, particularly Creative Juneteenth, with reading the very first part of this book. Now, I'll be honest, unless it says who's read this, I don't know. And it's been so long since I've messed with this book. And my Aunt Mert's probably looking at this and like, that's the book. What are you doing? Like there was only maybe they were given to like the head of households, right? My grandmother, Eloise Jefferson, rest in heaven, she had this book. At that time, I want to say that my great grandmother, Murdy Joyner, was still alive and still with us. But she, again, yeah, she was. So I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, our sense of family, somebody wrote some very poignant things. I remember thumbing through this book and trying to figure out who these people were. And I'm just going to take a chance to try to read the first part of that. So again, if you guys will humor me, I'll try to read the very first part of the Yelverton family book. And I wish I could read as nice and as eloquently as some other folks that was on the show, but I'm going to read and I will take it from there. In memory of the stones on which we stepped, in memory of the branches from which we grew, the steps are getting higher, the branches are getting stronger. George L. Suggs, we thank you. Forward. This work is done with the intention of establishing a point for which the Yelverton family history can continually be recorded. Each year, as often as necessary, an update to this document can occur. Each day, an event occurs that should be recorded here. You will decide what is recorded. This is the first chapter rather than the last chapter of this work. First, what is history? Webster supplies several individual definitions of history. History, according to Webster, is the recording of all events of the past, which has happened in the past of people, and finally something important enough to be recorded. I believe the contents of this work will qualify as history because it is here, it is important enough to be recorded. History must also be placed in the proper perspective. Because of the very unusual circumstances surrounding the mass appearances of the Black race on the North American continent, our history is fragmented, diluted, and is generally untold. While the direct link between America and Africa has not been established for the Yelverton family, work will continue to establish that link. Establishing that link is vital. It is vital because we will begin at the proper place understanding ourselves. We will begin our history, Balaam Yelverton, the first Yelverton known to have lived in the United States of America. The focus further on the perspective of our history, one must turn to the readings and teachings of conditions of Africa for the past 300 or so years. To have been a Black man living here where Balaam was living, here was anything but easy. It was tough. You must understand the single most pressing issue then, as is now, was economics. Simply put, it was then and is now a war between the haves and have-nots. So picture Balaam not yet one generation removed from that awful condition known as slavery, with the same aspirations and desires of any other man. His aspirations and desires were the same as yours, such as survival, respect, dignity, education, comfort, safety, and most of all, a proliferation of family. I remind you that he didn't have a Civil Rights Act, a labor union, or a Supreme Court. Balaam was up against the greatest of odds. So when you become aware of the accomplishments of this family, I think you will have a better appreciation of just what kind of family we are. Not only did Balaam survive, he flourished and maintained a family right here in Greene County, North Carolina. I'm trying to see if I got enough time. There's the history. It's an oral history that runs about 7 to 10 more pages. There's a part to this that I want to kind of get to and then see. Because we have and I use this just from a creative standpoint, the first name of any of our ancestors in our family that we can trace back was Balaam Yeverton. That's about 6 to 7 generations before myself. The idea that Balaam had, 7 kids. I'm going to read it. This chapter contains the vital statistics of Balaam and Phoebe Yeverton. Balaam is the first of our ancestors known to have lived in the United States of America. Balaam's children are Isaac, Mary, Patrick, George, Virgil, Irvin, Sarah. This tree evolved from Balaam through Irvin, and through Irvin's children. And a tree will be completed for each of the Balaam's children in the future. I'm trying to see if there's one other part. There's a part that's about our education, because I know in my family, if nothing else, you didn't have to be smart, but you had to be learning. And I can appreciate that. Anybody that knows me knows that I love to learn any and everything I can possibly get my hand on. I think that from that part, we will close this book because I'm scared I'm going to break it, and my mom's going to watch this, and that's going to be it. I'm going to tell this little story. I got time, and then we will. I'll show you one last book, and we will close out our creative Juneteenth. The Yeverton family is one of great distinctions. The family has distinguished itself by participating and excelling in many aspects of life. The participation and excellence have been evident from the first to the current generations. Areas in which this family has brought favor upon itself include religion, education, military service, public service, athletics, medicine, law enforcement, civil organizations, entertainment, finance, and transportation. The first generation of the family, named Balaam, was a lover of life. One of his talents was praying. He had beady eyes, reddish-brown hair, and a loud, resonant voice. He rented a plantation and owned a horse and buggy. He heated his buggy in the winter by placing warm bricks beneath his feet. He was also a very sharp dresser, one who wore bell-bottom pants and spike-tail coats. He could not read or write, but he could speak English. He was also a ladies' man. He loved life and knew how to live it. The second generation, Balaam's children, carry on much of the same manner as the first. Research remains to be done on all the children except Irvin. Irvin could read and write, yet he had not the benefit of formal education. That is an excellent achievement in the area of education. Irvin was a singer, a prayer, a community leader, a peacemaker, and a counselor. He was a member of the church. He held several offices in the church, including class leader and preacher steward. He was also a mason. He loved horses, cars, and shoes. It is not surprising then that he loved to ride. He was the first member of the family to be licensed to drive. He got the license free. He was also a farmer who owned a horse and a buggy, farm animals, and farm equipment. I cannot place an exact value of what he owned. However, owning a horse and buggy then is like owning your car today. The records show Irvin's wife, Phoebe, was a housewife. The significance of that is that she could afford to be home and raise the children. She was a strict disciplinarian who did not spare the rod. She was a deaconess in the church and an Eastern Star. She achieved the title of Eastern Star Point. And so with that, thank you all so very much for allowing me to read that one part. But there's a last part that I want to see if I can find, because it's a vindication point. I think that I will save that for another time. So unless it's right here at the very end, and the book's literally falling apart in my hands. It's this is like our family treasure, and I had it marked where I am, and there's little points of notes all throughout. So I kind of show like someone came through and like made like my family made these parts and what was set. And again, I try to see if I can share it to the screen. You know, like the idea was that for the people, you were to write your name in, where they born and where they died, and be able to put these in. And again, the very first part is Balaam Yeverton. And let me just give that. So Balaam Yeverton was born in January 1847. He married Phoebe Taylor in Greene County, North Carolina, and he died in 1927. So to my ancestor, Balaam Yeverton, to his wife and my ancestor, Phoebe, and to all the amazing folks to fill this book. It's this is a book we used to kind of thumb through and be able to like try again. I think it was one of those things where we wanted to try to figure out who we were, where did we come from, and where are we going. And I always thought somebody was going to fill this book out. This was 1983. I had stolen this book, the idea of I was going to do it, but then that became yet another project on the desk of doom. That said, this is it's great to reflect and understanding. And I think, as anyone else knows, between this book and the book Up from Slavery, I pretty much try to thumb through and bother about once a year, particularly during Black History Month. I've got an old 1960s copy of that, of the other book. And yeah, I think it's the point, just wanted to reflect on what this day took, because I think this is the last part, and I'll go along. It's the idea of what it took for my ancestor Balaam to imagine a world that he couldn't be included in. For Phoebe to raise children in a world that they couldn't be included in. And again, we're talking right in the point of Juneteenth, right? So we're talking in a context of a point of celebration and a point of accomplishment and appreciation, but still being persecuted, being held down and held back, and being seen as less than, and with laws and politics and economics and the world telling you that those views are right. But when we look at ourselves here now as the descendants of these people, particularly as we celebrate Juneteenth and this idea of creative Juneteenth, being able to imagine myself, as someone of some semblance of education and hopefully some semblance of knowledge, and also some point of appreciation for the skills and talents that I do have, that we are in that sense free. We are able to tell us that we can tell our stories the way that we want to tell them, with agency and with authenticity. But a lot of times, even despite the best case of circumstances, there are things that stand in that way. And so the idea of proclaiming a creative Juneteenth was not only to celebrate those civil liberties, but the liberty of spirit, the liberty of mind, and the liberty of story, that we can honor Phoebe, we can honor Balaam, we can honor those same people in your life and in your legacy. And in the same standpoint, do our best to pay it forward in appreciation. And so again, as we spoke about, that's a conversation in solidarity, not just for the Black experience or the African experience, but for the LGBTQIA experience, for the AAPI experience, for the migrant experience, for the American experience, right? So we have to look at this as a point of inclusion, not for just a point of representation, but for reality. And so that's where I hope that in bringing this eclectic group of folks, from all walks of life, but all looking at the same point of having a creative story in their hearts and being people of action that put those ideas into play. Close at this last book, and then we will proceed to our 7 o'clock thing. Just a couple of minutes. This is the other book I remember. This book was my Aunt Murdy's from HBCU, UNC, not UNC, everyone was speaking. This is from NCCU. This book is called Path Towards Freedom, A Bibliographical History of Blacks and Indians in North Carolina by Blacks and Indians. And I remember this book because it had pictures in it, and we try to draw the pictures. And so it's the idea that this book was my Aunt Murdy's book. She brought it back from Central. And I remember us looking at this book all the time because it had pictures of Black people from North Carolina that did things, right? It was an idea like we didn't have to think of the fantastic spaces in New York and Los Angeles or the people we saw on television. This particular book was written and created specifically as an overview from that. And I want to try to see if I can read one last part to that. That was good in this introduction, and then we'll close kind of in convocation with that. This book has been written almost entirely by North American Native Americans and Blacks, both laymen and scholars. It is intended as a brief, popular introduction to the aspects of the contributions and cultures of these two ethnic groups. The editors have sought to include a broader coverage of the experiences of these two ethnic groups that it is to be found in an available single source. The history of these groups have long been neglected. The editors became more aware that one result of the neglect of Native Americans and Blacks have been the failures of scholars to provide adequate studies of many areas of experiences for these two groups. This is particularly true at the level of state and local history. Among examples here are the absence of adequate biographies of numerous worthy persons, the absence of documented histories, the absence of comprehensive single-volume general histories, and the neglect of the history of the educational, business, religious, and other institutions. It is hoped that this volume will serve as a reference and supplementary source for not only the general public, but grade school, college, and university students and their teachers. This volume is unique. The editors believe that from essays in this book, teachers may formulate questions for themes, discussions, or debates, and similar activities which students find both interesting and challenging. However, our primary intent has been to highlight the significant role played in North Carolina's past and present by her ethnic minorities. The topical treatment of the essays herein included the elimination of all seeming repetitiveness. With the hope of inspiring younger Native American and Blacks to higher achievements, the editors and sponsors of this project deliberately included numerous names of the persons and their contributions. These are groups too often represented in history as faceless entities. The need to choose persons from many different fields, such as education, politics, religion, business, sports, and art, plus the need to cover the most recent history, forced a selection process which compelled exclusion of worthy individuals, both living and dead. To ensure objectivity in selecting the broad range of persons for bibliographical sketches mentioned above, a questionnaire was prepared and 2,000 copies was mailed to a randomly selected sample of businesses, churches, athletic and educational and fraternal leaders in the state. The artwork of this volume vividly complements the verbal depictions of the experiences and culture of Native Americans and Blacks. The editors feel that the high level of interest and support given to this project by the legislative and administrative officials of the state of North Carolina, the State Bicentennial Commission, and North Carolina State University merit the commendation of all users of this book. Yep. And so this book here, again, was a treasure when I was little. And again, just to kind of quickly thumb through it and share, it has educational standpoints, like the percentage of people employed in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries by race from 1900 to 1970. And then it has just pictures of Black and Native American people within that point. And though that's definitely the intersection of my family from Greene County, North Carolina, again, my identification from a cultural standpoint has always been the African American experience. That said, it's almost appropriate, right? Juneteenth is a path towards freedom. Creative Juneteenth is a path towards your creative freedom. And what I was hoping that we got out of today, and again, as we get ready to close, is that we understand that we are free in that sense to tell our stories, to share what we can and what we should of ourselves, but also to know that our stories in itself are valuable and that our creativity is the most precious resource that we have. And that without equity, without appreciation, and without inclusion in the story places, in the place of story, we're being done a disservice. And in that same sense, it is up to us to vigorously and loudly and proudly exist, and to showcase that this is just the beginning of one of many celebrations. And for us, hopefully here at Subsume, for everyone who's been a part of Subsume, who's been a backer of me, been a backer of my friends, been a backer of my collaborators, I want to sincerely thank you, and know that the good work that is to come is an honor of you. And so with that, and my voice going, since talking all day today, my name is Dejan Sneed. I'm the founder, owner, and operator of Subsume Media. Subsume Media being a creative-based platform that's the intersection of creativity, technology, and community, where we look to take creative and technology careers to empower the workforce of tomorrow. So again, and this has been our created Juneteenth Saturday edition. Think of what day it is. And so with that, we've got a full schedule that starts right at 10 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. We'll have film. We'll have more engagements like this. We'll have a bunch of good giveaways, so please stay tuned. And the party's still going. So with that, as we get ready to jump into the feed here with our streamer, our streaming artist, Micah Sazo, and also proceed into the virtual, where we'll meet in alt space and have a party with the Metaculture team and Metaculture VR, and show a small film there, as well as listen to live music and have our after party. So with that, thank you so very much. I appreciate you for your love and support. This is Dejan Sneed signing off, and thank you so very much for celebrating Creative Juneteenth this Saturday, day 2 of 3. Take care and have a good night.